We're going to call the meeting of ISD 361 to order. Roll call. ISD 361 board, sorry. Roll call. Mike Holden. Michelle Hebner.
Here.
Tony Corpy.
Here.
Jennifer Windows.
Here.
Ted Saxon here. Terry Murray. Roxanne Skokstad-Deach. Kevin Grover. Here. Elabar Jeffrey, student representative. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay.
Hey, Ted.
Yep.
Your video is pointed at your feet, if that's what you want.
Oh, funny. We must have bumped it. You know what, though? My shoes are amazing right now. I'm just saying.
That's better.
Okay. We're just waiting for 1 sec. Okay. Moving on to approval of the agenda as presented. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
I got a motion by Mike and a second by Michelle. Are you okay with that, Michelle? Being the second?
Yep, that's fine.
All right. We will do a roll call vote now. Mike Holden?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. I back up. Nothing? Okay. Mike Holden, yes. Michelle Hebner?
Yes.
Tony Corpy?
Yes.
Jennifer Windows?
Yes.
Ted Saxton, yes. It carries unanimously 5-0. All right. Moving on to the presentation of September Elks Student of the Month, Anna Windows and Mitchell Nemec.
Okay, hopefully everybody can hear me. We will start with Anna Windows. Anna Windows is the Elks September Female Student of the Month. Anna is a very dedicated and passionate student who is devoted to helping others. She is a member of the Minnesota Honor Society and currently holds the treasurer position. Anna is also the current secretary for the FHS Student Council. She has been on the principal's list, received academic excellence awards, and was awarded the Harvard Book Award, and has taken college-level concurrent enrollment classes throughout her high school career. Anna is also very involved in extracurricular activities as a member of the cross-country, basketball, and track and field teams, and is a captain for both cross-country and basketball. When not involved in academics and athletics, she has been actively volunteered through Student Council, Minnesota Honor Society, and at the Elks Christmas dinners and at Voyagers National Park. Anna has held a part-time job as a barista waitress at the Coffee Landing. Her future plans are to attend a four-year university in the fall to pursue a degree in biology or environmental science. Anna Windows, the Elks September Female Student of the Month. Mitchell. Mitchell Nemec is the Elks September Male Student of the Month. Mitchell is a member of the Minnesota Honor Society and is the current president. He has also been a member of Student Council. Mitchell has been on the A Honor Roll and Principals list throughout his high school career. Although Along with maintaining excellent grades in the classroom, he has been involved in the FHS pep band as a drummer. Mitchell is a very intelligent, respectful student to have in the classroom. He leads by example as he is a captain in both hockey and golf. Mitchell is also very involved in the community as a volunteer for numerous activities, to include working with children at youth clinics for both hockey and golf. During the summer months, he works at Shea Shea Resort. Next year, Mitchell plans to attend a four-year university to major in either radiological science or education to become a teacher. Mitchell Nemec, the Elks September Male Student of the Month.
Moving on to the presentation of October's Elks Student of the Month, Rachel Schoen and Jack Maxwell.
Okay, now we have the October Students of the Month. Rachel Schoen is the Elks October Female Student of the Month. Rachel is an exceptional student who always challenges herself both in and out of the classroom. She has been on the principal's list and an honor student and received the Academic Excellence Award the past 3 years. Outside of the classroom, Rachel is a member of Minnesota Honor Society and the Community Education Board. When not being actively involved at school, she volunteers for numerous activities in the community to include Ruby's Pantry, school dances, and the Elks Thanksgiving pies and pancake feeds. During the summer, Rachel works as the manager at Tara's Wharf. She is planning to attend Central Lakes College in Brainerd in the fall to pursue a degree in horticulture. Rachel Schoen, the Elks October Female of the Month.
Oh, they're in the library.
Mhm.
Quick.
I couldn't see.
Jack, you ready? Oh, you made it.
Oh, you made it.
Oh.
And for our final Student of the Month presentation for today, Jack Maxwell. Jack Maxwell is the Male October Student of the Month. Jack is an outstanding student and role model in our school. He is a member of the Minnesota Honor Society and is currently the vice president. Jack is currently taking concurrent enrollment classes at Falls High School and has been on the A honor roll and principal's list throughout his high school career. Along with maintaining excellent grades in the classroom, he is very involved in athletics. Jack is a member of both the football and track and field teams. He is a goal setter. Jack's goal this year is to break the record, the school record for pole vaulting. Additionally, he has been involved in the community volunteering for service opportunities through MHS. Next year, Jack plans to attend California Polytechnic University to study mechanical engineering. Jack Maxwell, the Elks October Male Student of the Month.
Do you have one paperwork, or do you want to call them?
She's the first one.
I'll move him to last. Okay. Okay, moving on to public open forum. We have some people interested in public open forum. Since we have multiple people, I do want to go over a couple of rules really quick. That the first is I would appreciate it if you would limit yourself to 5 minutes. If everybody is talking on the same subject and everybody talks for 5 minutes, we're going to have to start limiting the time a little bit. But I do want everybody to be heard who has an interest in speaking. And I will give the people that are at home the same opportunity, but we'll start with the people that are here. And just one more heads up about open forum. How it runs is we don't generally engage in open forum. It's more for you guys to tell us stuff. However, we can ask some clarifying questions, but it won't be a discussion. So we look forward to hearing from you, but if you don't hear feedback from us immediately, we will be talking about everything that you're going to be talking about when we get to that action item. So then you'll have your opportunity to hear our thoughts more. So, okay. Our first up for public open forum is going to be Jessica Crosby, and she would like to speak on football cheerleader travel.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Jessica Crosby. I am the football cheerleading advisor. And the reason I'm here today is to discuss the decision that was made by the administration not to allow the football cheerleaders to travel to the game in Moose Lake on Friday, October 9th, and also the decision to not allow them to travel at all this season. First, I'd like to give you a quick rundown of the events as they happened the week of October 5th, just so we're all on a level playing field. Monday, I received a call from the football coach, Seth Eistad. He gave me a rundown of Friday, letting me know he had requested 2 school buses so the entire team and cheerleaders could go to the game and adhere to all COVID guidelines. He let me know what time the kids were getting dismissed, what time the buses were leaving, where and when we were stopping to eat, asked me the girls' order so he could call it in ahead of time. I thanked Seth for being so organized and always including the cheerleaders. About 45 minutes later, I received a call from Bill Mason informing me that the cheerleaders were not going to be allowed to travel to the game in Moose Lake. I told him I didn't understand, as I had literally just spoken to Seth and gotten all the details. Mr. Mason said that they were going to try and convince Seth not to take some of the football players as well so they could fit all on one bus. Tuesday afternoon, prior to team pictures, Seth and I met up with Mr. Mason in the hallway at the high school. At that time, Seth informed Mr. Mason that the football boosters had agreed to pay for an additional bus to Moose Lake so the entire team and cheerleaders could attend the game. Mr. Mason said he was going to have to talk to Mr. Grover, as it was Mr. Grover that had said the cheerleaders couldn't go. I said to Mr. Mason, if there is no expense to the school, why would Mr. Grover have any issue with the girls going to the game? There were no answers given to me at that time. Seth then said that the arrangements had been made, it was too close to Friday to make further changes, the team wanted the cheerleaders there, and that we could have another discussion prior to the next out-of-town game with Evelyn. Mr. Mason again mentioned that he would have to talk to Mr. Grover, but as far as I knew at that point, the issue was resolved for that Friday. Late Wednesday afternoon, I received another call from Mr. Mason informing me that the cheerleaders were not going to be allowed to go to the game on Friday. I asked him again why. If the boosters are paying for the bus, I have all parental permission. Why would Mr. Grover or the school care if the girls went? He asked me why I would want to take the risk, I assume of COVID, by taking the girls to the game. I replied to him that they weren't any more at risk on a bus than they are at school. They aren't any more at risk on a bus than they are when they're all hanging out together every weekend. Also, I asked, why is it okay for the boys to go but not the girls? I've never heard any evidence of girls being more susceptible to COVID than boys. And again, I asked Mr. Mason, what is the rationale behind this decision? He then mentioned that he had spoken to other athletic directors in our conference and none of them were traveling either. I told him that wasn't really a valid argument because on a normal year, Two Harbors and Greenway are the only other schools that have cheerleaders that travel. He again said the decision had been made by Mr. Grover that the girls couldn't go, and I again asked what the rationale was behind the decision. I told him I thought they were doing the wrong thing, this was the wrong decision, and I told him that he was probably going to have some very unhappy parents and to expect some phone calls. At that time, I was told as a coach and advisor for the school, it was expected that I wouldn't throw he and Mr. Grover under the bus. I told him I needed to know the rationale behind the decision if he expected me to be able to explain this to the girls and their parents, and that I couldn't be expected to toe the company line if he didn't give me a valid reason. Also, in my experience, people don't usually say that they don't want you to throw them under the bus unless they know they're doing something that's not exactly right. Once we ended the conversation, I texted Seth to tell him what Mr. Mason had said. Seth replied asking me when I could come to the school for a meeting on Thursday with Mr. Grover and Mr. Mason. That Thursday afternoon at 3 o'clock, Mr. Mason, Seth Eistad, Jared Koshchik, Jake Eistad, and the other coach, Seth, and myself met in person at the high school. Mr. Grover was dialed into the conversation after about the first 15 minutes. Seth Eistad reiterated to both Mr. Mason and Mr. Grover that taking the extra bus to the game in Moose Lake would be at absolutely no expense to the school. The boosters had agreed to pay for it. Seth also reiterated that his vision for the football program at FHS and the culture he is trying to create is that of one team, which includes all the players, even those that may not play in the game, and the cheerleaders. He also made a point to say that we don't know what's going to happen with this season. Because of COVID, everything could come to a screeching halt tomorrow. So why not let all the players and cheerleaders experience the game in Moose Lake at no additional expense to the school and adhering to all COVID guidelines? I also spoke to Mr. Mason and Mr. Grover about the fact that so much has been taken away from these kids already. Why would we take something else that they have been working towards away from them? In addition to that, I had all the parents' permission for the girls to go. As long as the parents are okay with it and we're adhering to all the COVID guidelines, why would the school override that? Also, the same sentence, Mr. Grover told the football coaches that if they were willing to accept the risk, that they could take a second bus and take all the players. When I asked after that, why couldn't I accept the risk for the cheerleaders, he replied, Jessica, I'm not going to argue with you, and informed me that he was going to have to consult with the school board. I asked again, what is the difference between the players and the cheerleaders? What is the rationale behind the decision? Because it didn't make sense to me. I found out around 8 p.m. Thursday evening that the girls would not be attending the game on Friday. So there are a few questions I have about the decision still. The school board was contacted individually via phone by Mr. Grover on Thursday evening. I know for a fact that all the members had not weighed in with their decision before I was given the answer that the girls couldn't go. Also, as it was not an official meeting or an official vote, how does that work? I don't understand how a decision, if you can call it that, is binding when it's not an official meeting. Also, why was there even a question of the cheerleaders going when there was room on the bus and they would be adhering to all necessary COVID guidelines? I was also told that no other cheerleaders in our conference were traveling this year, only to find out later that Two Harbors is in fact sending their cheerleaders to out-of-town games. I also found out after our meeting that Little Fork and Bemidji cheerleaders are also traveling. The biggest question that has come out of all of this is why are the girls being treated differently than the boys? They put in the work. Bronco cheerleaders have always traveled with the team if there is room, which is pursuant to the activities handbook. And when there hasn't been room on the bus, we paid for a van out of our own funds. In this instance, the girls and several parents that had asked were told that no matter how the girls got to the game, they wouldn't be allowed to cheer. It was just a non-issue. As a result of this entire thing, I ended up with 5 of my 9 cheerleaders driving a personal car 4 hours one way to a game that they should have been cheering at. They all went in one car with their parents' permission. Wouldn't it have been safer for them to all be on that bus and cheering at the game like they should have been? Also, Bronco cheerleaders are paying an activity fee to participate in their sport. The Bronco cheerleaders do not, to my knowledge, receive any funding from the school. We fundraise for uniforms and palms, and the girls individually pay for their warm-ups, shoes, hair bows, bloomers, and anything else they need for the season. My understanding was that their fee went towards the cost of travel. If they aren't going to travel, why are they paying a fee? I feel that not allowing the cheerleaders to travel to out-of-town games, even during this unprecedented time, is taking yet another thing away from them, and it's completely unnecessary. The cheerleaders would have been 6 feet apart on the bus. They were prepared to wear masks into the stands, and when they cheer, they're 6 feet apart in an outdoor setting. There is no greater risk to them than there is the players that are hitting each other, sweating on each other, and all touching the same ball with their hands. In one word, I would call this discrimination. On a personal note, this is my 16th year as cheerleading coach for football with ISD 361. I don't do this for pay or recognition. I do it because I love cheerleading and I love the kids. Now, it is fairly well-known fact that this administration does not like to be challenged, and folks that dare challenge rarely come out successful and typically don't have a position with
Jessica,
What?
I got to stop you for 1 sec. We're not going to attack the administration. However, you are on 1 sec, just 1 sec, because that's not the rule why I'm stopping you. We're at 8 minutes, and I would just like you to wrap up so other people have the same opportunity. I have enjoyed hearing from you, but out of fairness and sticking to the rules of the 5 minutes, I'll let you go past it. But if you could wrap it up, I would appreciate it, because I think other people want to speak, and if we all speak for 7 minutes, we're going to be here for a long time. But I'll let you go on because you're the coach and your opinion is very important here.
Thank you. I guess the last things I want to say is I am not here to cause problems or be a pain for Mr. Mason or Mr. Grover. I truly feel the decision was wrong, and I'm here to fight for these kids, to be their voice. I've been given the impression that because of this, I probably won't be asked back for a 17th season, which makes me sad. We should be teaching these kids to stand up for what's right and to speak out when they feel they're being treated wrong. We shouldn't be giving them the message that if you do speak up, you're putting yourself, your position or your personal reputation on the line. So if I'm not hired back next year, just know that it won't be because I don't want to be, because I love these kids. The last thing I'm going to say is you as a school board are an elected entity, which means you answer to your constituents, the people that elected you. I'm your constituent. These girls and their parents are your constituent. If you decide that these kids cannot travel to out-of-town games this year, you owe them an explanation, which is all I asked for the entire week leading up to the Moose Lake game, and I wasn't given one.
Thank you. We now have Josh Koenig. You ready to speak, Josh? You made it back. Yep, yeah. Do you want to sit? Like, do you want a chair too? Like, that would be okay too. I mean, we can get you one. You don't have to stand.
All right.
Oh no!
It is. It is. Okay, everybody
That's
can
our
hear
very
me.
high-tech solution.
Yeah. All right, so I wanted to take the opportunity to speak in front of everybody. As a parent, as a health educator in the community, as a coach for 25 years, and someone who has a lot of experience in dealing with this. And, you know, right now in one of my graduate classes, I'm doing a big, huge project on mental health. And we all know that COVID, we've all been through it. We all have different views on it, but we're all going through it together. And I guess my big concern in seeing how some things are going, and I'm actually looking forward as well, but I've had one student that has graduated from here. I have another one who's a senior right now and is very passionate about his activities, much like his father. And I have a daughter who's in 6th grade that shares that same passion. Activities, whether it's sports, whether it's whatever, are at the forefront. For some of these kids, their reason they come to school. And it is a proven fact that having these activities is a positive influence on their mental health. And I think as a district, as a community, we owe it to all of our kids in our community and to our coaches and everyone else to take the necessary steps to do things safely. For example, last week, Friday night, I know that Coach Eistad and I had talked. You know, in my feeling as a parent, if my son was a freshman, I want him at that game on that sideline. Make no doubt, I'm paying the same fee. It's a family. And win, lose, or draw, it doesn't matter what the scoreboard says. It's about that experience of running out onto that field, about being with your brothers, being with your teammates. Now, he's a senior. I don't view it any differently. I would challenge and ask the administration and the school board to work together to find some COVID relief money to be able to access, so that we don't have to say, I'm sorry, you three, you can't go today. That's not fair. It's not right. We're not a big enough school where we can really cut. We need all our kids, and there's power in numbers. And so I appeal to you as a board and administration to relook at how we're doing things, come up with funding, and I know budgets are tight, I get it, but we didn't have spring sports all last spring. So whether we want to say we saved money, didn't save money, you know, my reason for speaking today is I think everybody that knows me knows, other than my faith and my family and my military, the most important things to me are these kids and the experience that they get to have. Because you only get one high school career. You only get one shot. None of these kids are going pro in anything other than, they're not going pro in anything other than a career. And those that do have an opportunity are few and far between. And so even amidst the pandemic that we're currently dealing with, people are finding ways. There are districts all over this state of Minnesota. There are other states that are finding ways to allow all kids to participate. All kids, cheerleaders, players, everything. We get to basketball in the wintertime. We have, as of right now, based on where we're at, we have 18 games. There are, amongst those 18 games, I'm assuming probably 9 home and 9 away. That would be the logical split. But the basketball team traditionally carries 30 to 35 players. I know that because I used to be the head coach. And all those kids deserve to travel. All those kids deserve to go. And if that means in order to make that happen, we've got to take 2 buses and a van, then we owe it to them. They're paying a fee. It's their experience. It's their high school career. It's their high school experience. And I think we also need to, I know it's not this board's issue, but I also feel we need to look at our feeder programs. We had as I'm walking in, there were some junior high kids out there. Those are our kids. And they're out practicing and get no games. To me, that's not right. We have a volleyball team that's hopefully going to kick off this week. We have had no junior high volleyball. There are no youth sports right now. And I appeal to those in the room that are involved with the rec commission,
Josh,
to also look at the same thing.
can I get you to wrap it up with your final thoughts, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And so, as a family member of this community, I've been here 15 years now. This place is my home. It was not my home, but it is my home now. And there are a lot of great things going on in this community. Great things going on in this community. But I feel we can always do better. And I challenge all of us in this room right now to find a way to do better than what we did when we first came out of the gun, and learn from it and move forward with better experiences going forward, because it's all about these kids. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Seth Eistad, speaking on the same topic.
Thank you. I'm Seth Eistad, head coach with the International Falls Bronco football team. I'm speaking to you today to review the recent administrative decision involving the football team. We were told that the cheerleaders would not be allowed to participate in away games this year. The core of our modern program is emphasizing that the task ahead of us is never as great as the power behind us, that we are a tradition, a family, and each is dedicating a wholehearted commitment to something greater, and the cheerleaders are part of that family. Each member has paid athletic fees, fundraise, memorized calls, formation, motions, and plays with the commitment to improving our team since the onset of practices this summer. The Minnesota State High School League held significant consultation with medical professionals, and with an overwhelming majority of 15-3 determined that athletics should be completed this fall. Cheerleading is an activity sanctioned by the Minnesota State High School League, and we're given the vote to complete participation this fall. We can create resources for travel. This week, our trip is much shorter, and logistics aside, parents could sign a waiver and provide attendance, something that should not be a new concept. But if we're told again, cheerleaders can't participate, it's astounding how quickly we turn our back on the girls without consultation with coaches or the cheerleading squad. You can say that football is a game that only needs 11 players to play, and that the girls are not worth our time, resources, or efforts. But that's a fundamental flaw in our society, that women are not worth our time or our effort, that we do not value them enough to put forth an effort. A fundamental value of our team is respect. We treat our teammates, coaches, peers, teachers, opponents, families, and women with respect. Women are strong, and they are valued. As head coach, I will advocate for my players, coaches, parents, cheerleaders, booster club fans, and all involved. The task ahead of us is never as great as the power behind us. I will uphold this principle and drive my team forward. I must ask, will you? Stampede, and thank you.
Thank you, Seth. Brian Koenig, and are you going to be speaking are you guys all coming up at the same time? And Gavin Lovelace, and I don't have the third name on here. Christian Huffnagel? Okay, thank you. If you want to step up and in front. You can face us, the camera. Most people are watching behind you, so it's entirely up to you. There's board members on there as well. So.
All right, thank you. So we are obviously Bronco football players. My name is Brian Koenig. This is my senior year, and with everything that's been messed up through this pandemic and everything, we've learned to get through it. So the cheerleaders, I believe that they pay their fees. They work hard. They practice all the time. Why shouldn't they get to come and be with us as a part of a family like most of us are? We all love each other here. That's one thing. I've never seen a more tight-knit group than this year, and those cheerleaders are a part of that group, and we're all in this together. So, here you go.
I'm Christian Huffnagel and also a senior. We've got a family in football. All of us members of the team are a family. And that family does not end with just the boys, but it also expands to the cheerleaders. We cannot do this without them because their help for the team, they not only rally the crowds and our spectators, but they rally us to keep pushing. Their cheers, everything they've worked on, and the devotion they put into our team is immeasurable, and we cannot just turn our backs on them and tell them they can't come to these games with us because they deserve it. They come to our feeds, they fundraise with us, they help us do things that we could not do on our own. Just like Seth Eistad said, they are women, and we need to give them the respect that they deserve. We need to let them come to these games with us because that's what we would do for our real family, and they are part of our real family. And you guys might not understand. I'm not sure how many of you guys played high school sports, but I know that I love what I do, and I cannot do it with my entire family.
Hi, my name is Gavin Lovelace. I'm a junior, and to me, I don't get it. Why send our whole team, our family there, and why can't they come? I get it due to the corona stuff, totally. But they're part of our family again. They pay the fee, they fundraise, they practice like every day, you know? So why can't they fulfill their whole season just like we are? Why can't they go just like we are? I get it with the whatever funding. We have room, you know. We have, like Seth said, with the parents, they can drive down, stuff like that. But like I said, we're all a family, and they should be able to come with us.
Thank you for that. Yep, okay, that sounds good. Okay, one sec. Let me bring up something here. Yep, that's what I'm doing. I just want to make sure I can see a message because I have the agenda up right now. Okay, online, is there anybody who hasn't spoken already that would like to speak during open forum? The same requirements, you know, the 5 minutes and everything will still be enforced loosely. And then if you would like to, now would be the time. We don't have an open forum at the end.
Seth, this is John Samberg. I'd like to speak.
Okay, John, go ahead.
I'm not in the same subject, but I just wanted to share with the board that over the last 4 or 5 days, especially, I've had a lot of emails from staff concerned about the growing numbers of COVID cases in the area. And just kind of, I know I didn't see on the agenda, but I wonder if you guys are going to talk about your plan going forward, if those numbers continue to rise, what the plan is to keep everyone safe. So I just want to kind of throw that out there to make sure you guys want to talk about it or bring it up sometime during the agenda today if you could.
Will we be addressing that during your report? Yeah. Okay. Yes, we'll talk about it towards the end.
Okay, thank you.
During the superintendent's report, most likely. Thank you, John.
Yep, thanks.
Anybody else?
I would like to say something as well, please.
Okay, Megan Crosby, is that your name?
Yep.
Okay, it showed up. I just wasn't sure if it was you or not. So, okay, go ahead.
As a former Bronco cheerleader for both football and hockey, I think it's imperative that the girls get to travel with the team and have all of their hard work pay off in cheering at those games. Those boys moved me to tears, and so did Seth, because like it really is a family, and it really brought me back to those days when I cheered also. And those girls, like, they were my best friends. I was with them all the time, and that team, we were so supportive of that team, no matter what, win or lose. We did everything with them. We went to all of their spaghetti feeds, their banquets. We were with them all weekend, all the time. Like, that, it's just ridiculous to me that this is even a discussion, because it's never been a problem before, and I don't understand why it's a problem now, because as Jessica stated previously as well, why can the boys do it but the girls can't? And it just doesn't make sense to me, and I guess I would like an explanation as well. So, thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Anybody else? Last chance? Okay. Thank you to everybody who participated in open forum, especially the students. I know it takes a lot to get up here in front of everybody, or, you know, on the computer and speak like that as well. So I appreciate everybody's input. Okay. Moving on to the consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. I'll make that. Got a motion by Mike? Did I hear someone?
I will second.
Okay, thanks, Tony. All right, any further discussion from you, Kevin, or anything?
Just a few comments. One, if you notice, there's an April 2nd minutes on there. We missed one, and I apologize for that, and so that's why that's brought back. It was never formally approved. It was a special meeting. So anyway, that's that. Couple things just to point out, just so you're in the loop. Number 16, acknowledge arena startup. Normally the arena would be running today. MEA weekend is when it is normally started, but with activities not starting, hockey starts November 23rd. Our plan is to start the arena the week of the 9th, so it'll take 3-4 days to get ice in there. Figure skating can use it the following week, you know, just giving us a little bit of time in case there's an issue, which I hope there isn't. And then the hockey starts the 23rd, and I think the 30th the girls start. Is that right? So just giving you a heads up, we delayed running the arena for 3 weeks or so with really, Kerry Park is running and they're doing some rec stuff. Number 17, I just want to throw out, we are doing some work behind the scenes. It's network server stuff that needs to be replaced. Coming from COVID money, there's 3 buckets. Just asking for approval for that. Per cycle, this is stuff that is budgeted. It's not the complete. We have one family and consumer science still has requests to get in, but we would like to get some of it ordered. I'm very comfortable with where we're at. Financial wise, it is budgeted. And the same with number 20, the additional van, replacing one that will go out of service at the end of the year. We can use some of our COVID funds. We are using additional vehicles when we have to do stuff. So I just wanted to point those pieces out, and that's all I have.
Okay. Does anybody need any clarification on any of these?
I do have a couple questions, if I can just get a little bit of clarification.
Yep, as long as they're clarifying, that's quite all right.
Right. I guess I'm just looking at like the per cycle purchases. Like with the health, with the online books, is that something that wasn't covered with the books that were already purchased?
What happened is they actually ran out a year early. Somehow there was a 6-year instead of a 7-year cycle bought. And so they would have came up next year. We've moved them. They needed that. And again, we actually did an 8-year this year so that they're back on cycle. They're up next year. And so that's, unfortunately, I don't know how it came through it. I mean, it was a year short, and obviously that's their curriculum and they need it. So that was moved into this year from next year. And it'll still come within budget, so we're good.
Okay, perfect. I just wasn't sure how that was working out. And then the, what is a digital wood carver?
It's in essence, and I apologize if I don't explain it correctly. It's in essence the big carver that we have for the metal shop. It's roughly, I think, 4x4 and cuts, like they've done fire pits, done different things where it like laser engraves.
Okay,
It's going to do that on wood. I think it'll actually take a piece of wood up to 4x8. But it's something they've been looking for. They do have a few funds from, I think it's Falls Ed Foundation, like $1,500 or something that they're going to use towards it. But they're looking at incorporating so that they can do more design and that type of thing in there, and getting rid of a few machines that aren't being used anymore.
And you did say that all of this was budgeted for?
Yep. With the per cycle, I hate to say it, but, and I shouldn't say I hate to say it, it's just different. Typically, like math, English,
right.
Majority is books, or software, or, that type stuff for a lot of, when it gets to fax, wood shop, metal shop, most of their per cycle is mainly equipment. I'm looking.
And I think that's why it kind of stopped me in my tracks as I was reading through it, because I wasn't sure even what the accounting books were for facts. So that's probably why I wrote my questions down, but thanks for clarifying that.
Yep, and Carla will be getting us requests for facts. And it can include, like accounting, obviously, there are books needed, but I mean, typically for the shop area, it's a lot of equipment because that's where it comes from. And we've been very fortunate with the ALI to actually have gotten a lot of things replaced and not had to buy a lot of equipment. So, yep.
Great, thank you.
Great question, Tony. Anybody else? Okay, hearing none, we'll do a roll call. And I had the motion was by Mike and the second was by Tony. Roll call. Mike Holden?
Yes.
Michelle Hebner?
Yes.
Tony Corpy?
Yes.
Jennifer Windows?
Yes.
Ted Saxton, yes. Carries 5-0. Moving on to action item number 1, resolution of acceptance of gifts and donations. I'll entertain a motion. Okay. Resolution for acceptance of gifts and donations. Whereas School Board Policy 706 establishes the guidelines for the acceptance of gifts or donations to the district. Whereas the International Falls School Board encourages the support of the district's educational programs through gifts or donations that meet the goals and objectives of the school district. Whereas Minnesota Statute 465.03 states the school board may accept a gift, grant, or device of real or personal property only by the adoption of a resolution approved by 2/3 of its members. Therefore, be it resolved, the school board of International Falls Public School ISD 361 accepts with appreciation the following gifts, donations, or grants received by the school district. From PCA Mill of International Falls for pandemic technology expenses, $1,500. 6th grade backpacks, $500. From Wells Fargo Your Cause, Falls Elementary School, $310. From Parent Involvement Committee, storage shed and classroom supplies, $5,744.27. From Stuart and Susan Norquist, Mobile Touchscreen Project, $700. And for the Arena Shadow Box, $300. From the Football Booster, Football Field Fertilizing, $900. And Huddle Software, $2,000. For Huddle Software, from Volleyball Boosters, $700. Basketball Boosters, $3,000. Girls Hockey Boosters, $500. Boys Hockey Boosters, $500. I had a motion by Jen. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Mike beat you to it.
Good.
All right. Is there any further discussion on this motion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call. Mike Holden?
Yes.
Michelle Hebner?
Yes.
Tony Corpy?
Yes.
Jennifer Windows?
Yes.
Ted Saxton, yes. Carries 5-0. All right, one sec here. Action item number 2, adopt strategic plan update and recommendations. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Got a motion by Michelle and a second by Jen. And further discussion?
For the most part, and just so everyone is in the loop, and I have the document online as well. If Ted, Rox, and Jen had put a good chunk of the legwork in, I'm going to say months ago, as far as, was it July, or I think it even says on at some point, meeting with MSBA, coming up with a plan. We met or via conference or whatever a week ago or whatever to kind of finalize things. And so I don't know if you guys want to speak to it, if you want me to highlight.
Sure. Jen's been taking the lead on it, so between the two of you, either one is fine. If your green light's on, you're good.
After speaking to the MSBA representative, Gail Gilman, she basically listened to what. Oh, okay. Is that better?
Well, the microphone's on because we can hear it when you move it. So okay.
Okay. Basically, is to summarize, it's just establishing setting some short-term goals with our current board makeup, trying to have 2 work sessions this fall to set just some short-term goals in the maybe next 6 months. We'd establish that as a group. And then when the new board comes on, have a more long-term 3 to 5 year plan established in the spring with input from the public in 1 to 2 sessions, with or without the support from MSBA, depending on whether the board feels that's appropriate. So that's in a nutshell what the plan would be.
And just so that everyone is on board, not saying these are set specifically, but we had thrown out, and I put it in here.
Oh, yeah.
Just trying to, if you can see where, right here where I'm trying to highlight, trying to do work sessions October 26th and November 2nd. They're back to back the next 2 Mondays, 5 o'clock, with kind of a twofold plan. One would be doing a quick summary update of what we've met and what we haven't from our last plan. And we did that at one work session. I think we spent 2 hours or something, but all fairly concisely highlight those or whatever. The second thing that was talked about was asking principals, and I haven't talked to them yet, so this is new, about any needs currently right now, because I guess our thought is looking short-term at goals. A lot of what we're going through right now, I'm going to call it as COVID survival.
Still be around in 6 months. I mean, that might not be the same, but
correct.
It'll still be around,
But looking at that is, are there things that they need? Are there things that we can do to support them, shorter term, and trying to get 2, 3, district goals, so to speak, short term, and then, as Jen said, figure out our plan going forward. Just say 6 months from now of trying to set some longer term goals. So I just wanted to point those out. We thought better to come with some dates, and hopefully they'll work for the majority. If there's some reason we know a day is just horrible a night, it's before deer hunting.
That was taken into consideration.
Well, we talked about it.
Yeah. So schedules from board members. I know Terry and Rox aren't here right now, so that makes it tough to get feedback from them. But we can tentatively schedule it based on the members that are here, and then see if it works for them. And I think that
Rox was already okay with.
Oh yeah, Rox was okay. So it'd just be Terry. That's right. Next 2 Mondays, 5 o'clock. Anybody?
I'm good with that.
Okay. So hearing nobody opposed to it, then I guess we'll move forward with it. But as far as the adopt the strategic plan update, is like how are we adopting a strategic
Well, we're just
plan?
adopting this plan to move
Okay.
forward.
And then the next couple days, okay,
Yep.
it seems like maybe, okay, well, we'll adopt it because we have a motion and a second. So we have a motion by Michelle and a second by Jen. But is there any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mike Holden,
Yes.
Michelle Hebner,
Yes.
Tony Corpy,
Yes.
Jennifer Windows,
Yes.
Ed Saxton, yes, carries 5-0. Action item number 3, approve superintendent goals per attachment. I'll entertain a motion. Got a motion by Mike, do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Michelle, further discussion, everybody got it in their packet or online?
And so for the most part, the only thing I put in there different than the, was to put the strategic plan update in there. And all I put, if you want different wording, I'm more than open to that. Coordinate follow through of new plan, in essence of what you just approved to get short-term goals updated in October, November, and then coordinate the board to work through long-range planning in the spring. And maybe should say with possible assistance of MSB, depending on what the board. So that's the only piece I changed because that one was kind of blank last time.
Okay. Does anybody have any further discussion? And then just for clarification then, is our plan then we evaluate this, you on these right now? I mean, not right now, obviously, but I mean, before the next board meeting, that's what we would like?
No, this is setting actually for this year. So technically, usually we do a 6-month kind of where we at. And then again in June, end of June board.
Oh yeah, I got some more to discuss. I get it.
Yep.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, hearing none, we'll call it to a roll call vote. Mike Holden? Oh, did I have someone speaking up? Oh, no, okay. Thought somebody was trying to jump in there at the last second. Mike Holden?
Yes.
Michelle Hebner?
Yes.
Tony Corpy?
Yes.
Jennifer Windows?
Yes.
Ted Saxton, yes. Carries 5-0. Okay, moving on to discussion and action on amount of travel allowed for the rest of the school year for extracurricular activities, and who can travel and to what extent pertaining to limiting possible exposure, what the district can accommodate for transportation, guidance from state and neighboring districts, etc.
Let's leave, if we can just have some discussion, it has motion inside. We have to come up with, a plan, so to speak, of what you want to follow through. So first of all, and I did ask Mr. Mason to come, he can speak if he has things to add or if you have questions of him. I'm not going to go into recapping or arguing about different things that have been said. I think some of it is relevant. I will clarify a few things. The statement Ms. Crosby made about not every board member being contacted is correct. And I mentioned it to Board Chair Saxton that I'd gotten through everyone talking to him from 3:30 to I think it was just before 8 o'clock and had left him a message. There was enough kind of weigh in. It is true it is not a vote, but as administrators, we often look for guidance and are not going to, in essence, go against, I'm going to say my bosses, if you will, or get ideas, feedback, brainstorm, however you want to say it, before certain decisions are made. Because unfortunately, fortunate or unfortunate, not every decision can come before the board in a timely manner. Obviously, there's things that the board shouldn't have to deal with on a day-by-day piece. So I did solicit feedback, talk through discussion as we had with several of you prior to that even, but I had talked with 6 out of 7 board members. And then at that point...
Was that the last one, Kevin?
Yes,
okay.
Correct. And I did mention that when we talked that at that point...
Yeah, no, you told me that.
It really didn't... I don't want to say it didn't matter what you
thought,
but
I get where you're going with
the board had kind of given me my direction, so to speak. I talked with Mr. Mason, I talked with Mr. Eistad, and I was very open on, for the most part, where people stood, with the caveat that we would revisit it. Most of the board members wanted that. Let's all get in the same room, so to speak, like we are right now, and have a conversation, because the piece that came up is when Mr. Mason and I started looking at, the request that came in for 2 buses, we started looking forward at all the activities. And there are times in the winter, for instance, when all 4 activities were out. Could we handle 2 buses and vans, and meet the demand of everything? We also looked at what are other schools doing. Not to say it's right or wrong, but that's what we do a lot of times, is try seeing what others are doing. I did attach a sheet, and again, not saying, and I mentioned it in our meeting, not saying that it is all inclusive. Mr. Mason reached out to several districts, kind of Iron Range, Arrowhead, to see what we're doing in it. And I mentioned it in our meeting, and I'm not saying it was right. At that point, Two Harbors was the only one that we were aware of that was traveling. There are some others on that sheet that indicate that on a normal year they do travel, right or wrong, and there's some schools that don't travel on a normal year. And so we got feedback. I had conversations with, like I said, eventually all of you, and a decision was made. And that's where we're at right now, is what do you want to do going forward? Yeah, there are things that have been taken away. There's things that I'm going to say are not necessarily fair to any one of us that we've missed out on, and not disagreeing. It all affects mental health and whatever else you want to say. Not saying they are or not part of a team, whether they just cheer at home or not. Some schools, that's all they do on a normal year. Are they part of the team, the family? I would say yes. And it's just, it is what it is. The other piece that was talked about, and just trying to get it all out, is there are kids that go, and again, they are part of the team, but years ago, not all 9th graders or underclassmen necessarily travel. As we've gotten smaller, and I'm going to say it's probably many districts, that has changed. And so not saying right or wrong. I understand on a normal year, if they can go, great. We're looking at junior high activities, doing something different, or maybe not doing anything at all. That's not technically our decision right here, but it is unfortunate. Like with basketball, for instance, we used to be able to send 7th through 12th grade all on the same bus, and get junior high activities, get them all knocked out in one evening, so to speak, and minimal transportation that way. In this time, we're not going to be able to do that. We are looking at, theoretically, how do you take and pick any activity you want, just varsity and junior varsity, and the coaching staff, manager, how do we get them all there? If the board does it for one, you do need to do it for all. Or if you allow, this is what we're going to do, I think the opportunity has to be there for all, meaning if you're going to allow, I did reach out, because I'm not against the idea, to our attorney, just to see if there's anything we should have in place if we open it up to allow parents to transport their children, okay? To the games and back, and what happens if, and I'm just using Ted as an example, somehow he agrees to take someone else's kids, is there any liability to the district? Typically, we allow parents to, take their kids. Parents have a right to take their kids at any time, but it's most of the time after an event. Normally, the coaches would want the kids riding the bus, being part of the team on the way down, but then afterwards, sometimes people would ride home. I haven't gotten an answer. I actually got an email back today saying she's working on it, but she was going to reply in a different email. So I don't think there's going to be an issue, but if we open that door, and I'm not saying just for cheerleading, might not even include cheerleading, that's up to you guys, but even for football or basketball or any other event, if a parent wants their kid to ride with their family, it's not necessarily in this day and age a bad thing. Because again, mentioned it to all board members, if something happens on that bus as far as someone having COVID, the whole group is out, okay? There's no 6-foot social distancing. If you're over 30 minutes on a bus, it wipes that whole crew out. So some families may want their kid, if they're going to every event, just to travel with them. And I just want to make sure whatever we should have in place in this day and age, we have. If you want that open for cheerleading or something else, that is at the board's realm.
So I do have some stuff that I wanted to clarify, less about the topic and more about how decisions are made as a school board. We there's no way we make decisions like this on a regular basis, especially on Thursday nights. That's why we have a superintendent, and there are some checks and balances in place to make sure that we give him the authority to make these decisions. However, there's also the check part of it to where on some stuff we can override him. However, that's why when he makes a decision, he wants to make sure that we're going to support his decision. It has nothing to do with that's how we're going to actually vote, because that's illegal. That violates open meeting law and all kinds of other stuff. So we never, when he asks us about the topic, he would never ask us, would you vote this way or anything like that. So we discuss the topic, he gets a feel for the support that he has or doesn't have, and it doesn't happen often because generally the school board puts a lot of faith in Superintendent Kevin Grover, and he does a fantastic job and has earned that faith, so to speak. So there's that checks and balances in place. No open meeting law was violated, and so I just wanted to address that it wasn't enough. I kept on hearing that the board made a decision. The board did not make a decision. The board gave direction, and those are two completely different things in the open meeting law. And everybody on this board knows I'm a stickler for that rule because I'm not going to jail over being on the school board. Okay, so anyways, now I will open it up to any school board member who would like to speak.
Do you want Bill? Anything from Bill? Or?
Well, I think technically we have to open up to school board members first. Is there any school board members that would like to speak before Bill? You can certainly speak after.
I just have a question regarding football, the football family itself. What is the number of travelers that would be going to a game out of town?
Bill, you have that answer?
30 players. Close to 30 players, and then we've got 5 coaches, 2 or 3 student managers, 35. We're pushing 30, 36, 38 people.
And then there's 9 cheerleaders and an advisor. If you're
Yeah,
asking
cheerleading
for
squad's
that
9, and the advisor is 1, so that's 10. That'd be 10 more, so that'd be pushing around 47, 48 people.
48 to 50 people heading out
Correct.
into another community. I guess the issue that I have right now, and I'm just going to be honest, is the games that we're playing is in the county of St. Louis. And currently there's like almost 2,600 cases of COVID there with 63 deaths. So my worry is, okay, we're going to send 50 plus people on a bus or on 2 buses into a different community where there's super high numbers. And there has to be potty breaks, there has to be eating, there has to be stops along the way. But at the same time, I'm looking at it as, do I want that many people coming into our community and going into our gas stations? I know that there's guidelines and that we're trying to be super strict with following them. But I've also seen at the same time that we're not following them. So it makes me a little leery with just throwing that many people out, not throwing them out, but bringing them to another community where the numbers are that high, and then also bringing them back into the next, couple days they have another game, and then they're around a whole different exposure of people. So just want to put that out there.
Thank you, Tony. Would anybody else like to speak before Bill talks?
I just have a couple quick things.
Sure.
I agree with Tony, and I also really agree with Kevin's statements about if we do this for one group, you really have to be fair about doing it for other groups. I don't know that it was really a male versus female issue at all. I think it's just looking forward and being fair and being safe. And I think we need to take all those things into consideration. That's it.
Thank you, Michelle. Bill, do you have anything you'd like to add to the discussion?
Well, I just feel, bad for everybody involved with it. It's a tough situation. You want to throw not throw caution to the wind, but you want to take everybody. But then on the other side, you're looking at, is it the right way to, try to reduce exposure to the COVID virus? And that means taking less people to an out-of-town game or or if we're only got one bus available, there's only a certain amount of people that we can get on that bus. I mean, I know the Booster Club did purchase a bus, which was very, very nice of them to get more players and coaching staff, and we probably could have had cheerleaders on there if we chose to do that, but there was room. But on a normal year, we've got a school bus that'll take 48 to 50 people on the bus. This year we get a one to a seat, so we're down to 26 people on a bus. So that makes things pretty tight.
Okay.
And I just want to make sure too, everybody did understand that if one person were to test positive with COVID, that would wipe the whole bus out. That means football would be done. And I think that's kind of where we're all looking at too, is trying to make sure that that doesn't happen. We get where your guys' heart, get where your passion is, or I do anyway. I should only speak for myself because that's what I'm doing. But I get that you've been at all your practices, you love it, you want to be there. But I guess looking at it community-wide and school-wide, we have to look at safety first.
Okay. Other school board members, does anybody have any other comments? Mike?
Do you want to turn your mic, make sure so that they can hear? Is it on, Mike?
Yeah. So I'd like to hear the options we have tonight, and I'd like to have Bill Mason kind of explain what kind of options we do have. And then after he gets done talking, then I think we can look at it a little better. I visited with Bill today, and seems there's some options we can look at. And so if he'd be kind enough to tell us those options, we can weigh it from there. So.
Okay, Bill?
Yeah, well, we did discuss this, and I've been thinking about it. Option one, if the Booster Club purchases a bus, we have 2 buses available. There's enough room for cheerleaders, all the players, coaching staff, student managers on 2 buses. So they could carry everybody on the 2 buses. If we only had 1 bus, like I said, we're down to I think last week we were looking at 1 bus and a van. Then we got 26 players on the bus, and then we were taking a van. We can only get 3 passengers and a driver in a van. So that would be close to kind of reducing the roster down a little bit and getting your coaches and to the game. Other than that, we just not allow bring all the players and not allow cheerleaders, I guess, or have the cheerleaders go down with parents.
Okay.
Travel with their
parents. And then of course option 3 is how things are, I suppose.
Yep. So travel with their parents is option 1. Option 2 would be to, if the Booster Club has another bus, everybody can fit on 2 buses. That would be a doable thing. If we only had a bus and a van, we'd have to reduce our roster down to the number of players and coaches that can fit on that bus, along with a school van, which would carry 4 people.
Okay.
And the boosters have the funds to cover every game, out-of-town game, if they were to pay for another bus?
If I can throw in, I think...
I have some questions too when we're all done.
I think throwing what the board needs to decide, number 1, is what they're going to fund for consistently across all groups. So, and I guess, and I'm just throwing it out, my recommendation, like with this group, was because there have been times that we've taken a bus and a van in a normal year. So that was the offer up. And then, like I say, figure out if boosters want, we can't speak for boosters, and not just with football, we're talking hockey, basketball, across the board. So I think we need to set this is what the district will do. And then maybe a caveat is if you want, whether it's parents, whether it's, boosters or whoever, are you okay if either more kids, more athletes go, whether it's cheerleaders, whether it happened to be, C-team kids or whatever it may be, that couldn't fit on the normal whatever we're going to send? Because, like I say, it's going to come up with boys hockey. It's going to come up with probably boys and girls basketball. And I'll just be honest, we don't have enough buses. I mean, to send 2 for every event. Yeah, you can rent from Rinkies or somewhere else. But, that becomes the board's decision on how much, again, I'm just going to pick on basketball. I think we can fit, whether it's a bus or a bus and a van, to take the A team, varsity and junior varsity. It depends on how many kids come out, if they can get the cheerleaders in and all the coaching staff. There are some kids, tough decisions. Again, going back years back, not everyone traveled. And again, not saying that's right or wrong. It's great that they can all go on a normal year. So again, I think we need to figure out what we're going to support, financially, so we're consistent across the board. And then, if boosters decide to do something, if some parents, because again, not every parent is necessarily going to go to every game, or what do we have to have in place if they want to ride with someone else, if that is an option we can, do. Kind of like rec activities often do, in the younger years, but the district needs to be consistent so that we're not doing one thing for basketball and something different for football and something different for, I'll pick on baseball in the spring or whatever. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So here's some things I've been thinking about related to this. First off, I'm going to say the wrong thing. What's a law that talks about male to female sports participation? Title 1? 9. Okay, I was going to say 9 too, but anyway, so Title 9, how does that apply in regards to the cheerleading squad? I know the answer. I just want to hear it for the board's information.
Well, two things. One, Title IX, when we look at it on an annual basis, we have to, Mr. Mason actually puts a report in, and they no longer go by activities, it's by participation. You could have 2 boys activities and 6 girls activities and be out of compliance if the numbers don't somewhat
sure, I see
line
some
up.
logic behind that.
Where it used to be you had to have exact number of same activities or same number of activities. They go by total participation. The second thing, as far as the board has a right, as far as like with cheerleading, with football, basketball, to set limitations. We could limit the number more stringent. For instance, if you only wanted football to play 4 games this year, you would have that right to do that. Or how much, just like we've cut 2 events out, in the past for, most of the time 2 events for each sport. As far as cheerleading, obviously, that's a choice. Not saying any district is right or wrong. Some districts don't travel on a normal year. Okay, some are limiting it this year. Some are allowing it to go this year. So I don't think there's a Title IX discrimination piece. There were some words thrown out that I guess I don't know where they've come up with, that this is a male, female.
That's why I wanted clarification, because as far as the board's concerned, it has nothing to do with the athletes being female. And so you had more, Mike?
Yeah, I'd like to speak about what Kevin said about back in the old days. You earned the right to travel on that bus. There were a large amount of kids, like I was in the sport of wrestling, and 70 kids in the room. Well, they had tryouts every week, okay? And with that, the A squad, it was 12, B squad was 12. That's 24 kids. We didn't bring the 9th graders unless they made the varsity. So the old days, you didn't bring all the kids just because they were out for the sport. You earned that right to go. And it was done in front of all 70 kids. And that was an honor to be able to travel. You earned it in the room. Tryouts every week. So I look at this and I'm like, they're taking players, or they're talking about taking players that aren't going to play. That's not how we did it back in the old days. And if there's room by cutting the numbers down to what the kids that are just the ones that are going to play, and that makes it so the cheerleaders can go, I'd rather see that anytime. Because if you're just riding a bus and you're not playing, that's not earning the position. That's how they did it back in the days, the old days. So I want to say that. I think there's some adjustments that could be made so that the cheerleaders could go.
Okay, thank you. Jen, you had some more?
I haven't spoken yet.
Oh, maybe that's something else. I've been waiting.
No, I really value the sports in our district, and I was a 3-sport athlete and always was participating. I think they're super valuable. I appreciate that my kids get a chance to do it, and that's what I feel it's really a valuable opportunity that not every district has, and as districts have gotten smaller, they have to cut some things. So I'm really grateful that the Broncos have such a strong tradition of a strong sports tradition, and it's part of the legacy here. And I think we boards well before the one I served on has really invested in that, because we live a long ways from everywhere, and people are astounded the amount of school our kids miss for it, but it's because it's clearly something that we value. That said, I also really liked hearing from all of the football family, and I think it's wonderful that you're building a team like that with the cheerleaders and with all of at all levels. And I believe in feeder programs, and I believe in all those things. I think they're really valuable. I think this is a really unusual year, as we all already know, and our priority and our time has been invested in trying to keep this school open. And if we do it right, we do live at the end of the road. We have an opportunity to do it right and keep them open longer if we all work at it together as a community. And Mr. Grover and other superintendents pulled together to say, please, to the communities. They said, please do what you can so we can keep these doors open, these kids and families and staff safe. So that's our primary focus, obviously. I feel like we also have to establish something that's fair. I feel like it's going to be different team building this year. If everybody can't go, it's a different way to build team. How do you have to do it creatively at home? If we send a bus and a van, and that means 31 players, whether it's basketball or hockey, 31 people, if that means coaches, managers, hockey player or sports players and cheerleaders, and it's all one big family, then it's a tough decision, but that family has to decide which 31 will go. That's one way to do it, is if we just say we're going to do a bus and a van, up to a bus and a van per event. It limits people that are going and increasing exposure. Yes, kids are in school, they could be exposed in school. Some of them are working, they could be exposed there. Each exposure to other people that is not as safe as it could be is one more opportunity to spread the virus. And it's unfortunately a sneaky little virus that can be showing up before we even know we're sick. And it can be deadly to people we don't even know, who may not even expect to be sick from it. It's hard to deal with it, for sure, but we're working so hard to try to keep people safe. So I agree that we should set a limit. Maybe it is a bus and a van per event. I don't know if it's fair that the groups that don't have a booster club to pay for extra buses should just let as many as possible go. I think we should limit it to a certain amount. That's the critical amount to go. There are times my kids in 7th and 8th grade couldn't go because the other team didn't have enough players to play a 7th and 8th grade team. So just some of them had to stay home sometimes. Unfortunate, yes, it's just the way it went. And they were fine. I mean, I would have loved to see them play more, but it's just the circumstances sometimes. So I'd like us to set, whatever it is, establish a set of what we're going to send. And that team and coach is going to have to figure out. I would have loved to see the cheerleaders go, but I wasn't comfortable with everybody going. I mean, if the decision was made and I didn't disagree with it, like if they were going to send another bus, that other bus could go, and that we would talk about it today. But if it's a full family and only 31 or 35 can go, then you might limit who can go so that the cheerleaders can go. I would agree that they could go if there's space. And so kind of like what you're saying, Mike, is that if you have a set number, you have to pick and choose. And it's a really unfortunate that we can't all go, but but it's something that's just a situation this year, and our safety has to be, and keeping our doors open and the safety of our community has to come first.
Yeah, I agree with that, Jen. I think with some adjustments, you know, with the coaching staff on football, decide who's going to go, who's going to play, and yet make room for the cheerleaders. There's got to be some adjustments that can be, because there's kids that aren't going to be playing football. So they sit down and talk about it, use their heads about it. I think it could be worked out so that both groups, the right number of football players and the cheerleaders could go.
Anybody else? For the, I mean, on the board or school staff, I mean, not school staff. I know we have people that are watching, but I mean, Bill or Kevin is what I'm trying to say. I mean, or Tim. But anybody else have anything they'd like to add to this? Okay, so we've had a discussion. We don't have any action before us, and so that would be the next step. If any board member saw fit to make an action, I would appreciate something. If it's to keep it status quo, that's fine too. We need something to go off of.
So
I'd like to make a, go ahead, Jen.
No, I'm just asking. You need a motion. You have something to offer.
I'd like to make a motion that we move ahead, that the sports determine the right amount that should be going in plan, and then allowing the cheerleaders, make room so that the cheerleaders can be part of it.
So I just want to clarify some stuff on your motion, Mike. So that is for this. How does that carry over to all sports then? I guess is what we would need to discuss, because that's what we're trying.
Maybe I should put in there.
I'm with you. I mean, not with you like I agree, but I'm with you. I understand what you're saying. But.
Yeah. Maybe I should put in there that each individual sport would look at what they could do, make sure they're using the players, you know, not bringing kids that aren't playing.
Okay.
I think that's good. I mean, that's the way it worked, and it clicked back in the day. The other thing is, by doing that we would make room for the cheerleaders.
I'm just going to jump in for just 1 second. I think with Mike and Jen, the discussion that they kind of had back and forth there, the combination of those two concepts I think would work well. I think Mike is really making a case for choosing the appropriate people to go, you know, people that are going to play, the cheerleaders, and carry that forward through the other sports. But I also think we have to establish a constraint on the amount of transportation that we're willing to provide as a district. I am all for sports. I agree that the kids really need to participate in sports, and of all years this year, but this year is like no other. And I don't think fiscally we can support all sports going forward beyond the standard a bus and a van per activity as we have done in the past. But fiscally, we just can't do it. So that's just my input.
Sure. Mike is still got a motion then. So limiting participation to people who are only going to play.
That's right.
Okay.
Can we get, though, I mean, it would be nice, and I'm just asking to add in there that the district will provide, just as Michelle said, because that outlines then, you know, we're going to put in a bus and a van if needed. Some sports might not need the van piece.
Yeah. Okay.
What I'm just throwing out there is, and I don't want to pick on them, but correct me if I'm wrong, you know, girls hockey doesn't have cheerleaders, so most likely they're going to get all in on a bus. You know, if they have two or three extra, or you know, you might pick girls basketball, right? Years ago we had cheerleading. Do they? The last few years they haven't, so they may just get a bus. Maybe they do need a bus and a van still. We'll see, but limit or at least get part of the motion what we're going to provide.
Well, one other One other thing is, football is a little different than the other sports because football, they'll take the varsity team only. Their JV team does not travel really with, JV team went out of town today for a game. But basketball and hockey, they will travel JV and varsity team on the bus, which typically you're looking at basketball maybe 10 and 10 or 10 and 12. So you got 22 people on the bus. But hockey, you're probably looking at another maybe 15, 50. You're probably looking at for JV and varsity teams on the bus, probably about 30 people. And, right now the buses can handle 26.
Okay. So a bus and a van might still be happening.
So that's what I was going to ask. So you're saying if hockey, JV, and hockey varsity went, you're going to exceed a bus and a van just for the basics to go?
Yep,
Is what you're saying.
for both teams, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what the numbers are, but I'm kind of guessing you're going to be 13, 14, and then 14, 15 per team. So you're looking at close to 30 people, I'm sure.
But we would get that with the bus and the van being, we can take 31. Yeah. There's 26 seats on the bus, and
so we got to keep on talking about it, definitely. But we only have a motion. I know we're still trying to figure out that motion, but we're going into discussion instead of figuring out the motion. So I guess you could rescind it and we could talk some more, or somebody could second it and we could talk some more.
Well, does Mike want to amend his motion to include the constraint of transportation? Is that the easiest?
Yeah, that's great. Mike says okay, if you can't hear. Okay, so then that's the motion on the table, which would be to limit it to the amount of players that will participate, and then also with the caveat of a bus and a van being the max. Is that correct? Okay, I have a motion for that. Do I hear a second? We can discuss more after the second.
Second.
And a second by Michelle. Okay, now discussion on that motion. So I guess here's a question I have about that too. The conflict in my brain is what. It's more of like, I absolutely agree with Jen that we are increasing our risk sending people out, right? And, but we are, so that's a concern of mine too. I also have some concerns about, if boosters, and they already do this to a certain extent, and there's new laws in the last year. I don't know, maybe Kevin can elaborate. Stacy knows them all like the back of her hand, but there are laws, like for example, we had to go over the assistant coaches, right? And we had to do that, and what boosters could pay and all that stuff. I don't know if any of these would apply to here. Okay. And the reason why I ask is because that would be, the fact that there isn't that rule can create something unfair based on the support around the sport. So when does it stop? There could be a slippery slope, but again, it's all in the best interest for the children. So I'm not saying that we got to worry about that as much. It's just something I've considered about this whole thing. I've been thinking about it quite a bit. My concern with the whole thing is sending people in the first place. I also know that that's not going to stop, especially by this vote, because your amendment was what it was. And we are, as I saw a chart today, 0.5 cases away from going to hybrid for our school. If that includes somebody related to this football team, or any sport going for that matter, then school changes immediately, right? Now that also might change on its own. So that's why we encourage the people, you sign that letter for everybody to be safe. So it's not saying that we're not going to go to full online learning because of this, but it means it's a possibility that we got to take very seriously. And so that's a long-winded way of saying, right now, with how things are, we really have to err on the side of caution, because next time, if the cases go up, we don't get that choice, right? The football team stays home, because the governor mandates it and stuff like that. So that's my concern, is we go up into that next category And our main priority as a school is and will always be educating students, and that's better done in person. So that's my feelings behind it.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Absolutely.
I'm just thinking through this. I guess I got two. If this was approved, and again, just saying if, what would happen if, and I'm just using football as an example, they say, you know what, we need 26 spots.
I thought about that too.
You know, where does that lie? And what I'm saying is a bus and a van is 31. Does that mean, you know, again, and I don't want to put football and cheerleading, you know, button heads, but does that mean, okay, you know, 5 cheerleading, you know, Visor and 4 or 5 can go and some have to stay, of that group stay? Or does it allow, I'm just throwing it out there, if we get it set up where parents could transport their own, are we saying it's okay if they, you know, if I rode with my parent down, that would be okay as well? I'm just asking.
No, that's a great question.
Those are the things that are going to come up, or I'm even getting towards, you know, thinking of hockey and some of the other activities that we may, you know, be 4 or 5 spots short, you know, and there's, and again, thank you for the parents that, you know, do travel. There's always, you know, a good group of people going that we probably could get, you know, rides for a good chunk of them if we needed, you know, and then that allows technically everyone to go, or is that not what you're looking and saying you make the hard decision, you know, kind of back to the old days and only take, and that's all that go. If everyone else travels on their own.
Yeah, I mean, if the coaches could give us, you know, like how many kids are actually playing, just those kids would be going. If we set a bus and a van and then allow for, you know, if the number isn't quite what, so that all the cheerleaders could go, then maybe we could set it up so that the parents could take their cheerleaders down there. Or maybe the booster club could provide a bus instead of a van as an extra, whatever it takes. That's my feeling. Get the right amount of kids that are actually going to play, and then try to come up with the best idea. You know, if the booster club wants to provide a bus that would take the extra cheerleaders, or the parents would, whatever we come up with. That's what I'd like to see.
So if there is transportation for any of what I'm going to call the extras, then technically everyone could go.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so that just, again, that kind of, is it safer to have a bunch of kids traveling on their, you know, with the parents and stuff either? So that's a concern, right? Like, I mean, at least on the bus, there's, I don't know. Jen, you got something over there?
Well, I'm kind of feeling the same way. If our point is that we have to be limiting how many kids can participate in our risk level that we're sending out of town each time, including, you know, our financial investment, but also the viral exposure risk, let's say. I think we need to set a limit, although now hockey makes it a little bit harder, I think, because definitely girls basketball, if they had JV and varsity, maybe they would have gone beyond that number.
Yep.
Maybe not. But there are some kids that sometimes you'd have to say you're not going to be able to travel, right? You know, and I think that would be a hard decision, but it would be, because they're not probably all going to play. Of course, someone gets hurt, you need some people that are going to be on the bench, that kind of thing. You definitely need more than 5 kids there, but maybe not all 18 of the varsity is going to be able to be there, or both teams. But it's hard to say then that both JV and varsity couldn't go for hockey, for instance, because they clearly need that. I mean, they're running lines, right? I'm not a hockey player, but running lines.
Yeah, they got
so I mean,
2-3 lines on each team, and
so yeah, what I mean is that I think a bus and a van, saying that's as many people as can participate in each event, whether that's players, coaches, managers, cheerleaders. That team's going to have to make that call, and then that's it. Like, that's all that can participate, because it can get real messy on this team has a booster that can send everybody, and now we've got 50 people going again. And this team has, has a bunch of kids going in a car by themselves, or a bunch of kids that are going with parents, and it just sounds pretty messy, and it still doesn't reduce our risk load necessarily. I feel like we need to kind of set a limit, but it has to at least include the basics. And I don't know if hockey, if you looked at numbers, if that means 2 buses for the sport
Basic.
that absolutely needs it, or one, to get the JV there and to get the varsity there. I guess that's what I'm saying.
Well, it's going to be close. I mean, hockey and basketball, they'll be pushing mid 20s to low 30s. I'm guessing, with the JV and varsity team and the coaching staffs.
But when you throw the cheerleaders in there,
Then if you got cheerleader, you got 10,
well,
8,
they're
10
not all
more,
9. There's
9 or whatever.
7,
So I mean, it's.
That's why I was saying I would just like to scale back during this time when it is pretty crucial to be, social distancing and staying safe, and then go back to normal when it is normal. Like, I don't want to see all those people tried out for the teams. They made those positions. I get that. And I would love to see them all go right now, but the numbers just aren't safe. So if we were to just scale back for now until our numbers are a little bit safer, and then eventually open it back up when it is safe to bring everybody, then the whole team can go. But it's just right now, it's not a safe time.
Well, it's just a matter of the bus capacity. I mean, like I said, a normal bus, we could get 48, 50 people on it, 2 to a seat.
Right.
Right now, we're one to a seat, so we're limited to 26 people on a bus instead of 48 or 50.
So what are you suggesting, Tony, for scaling back? I think we're just needing some definitions here, and then we can actually make a decision.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard because if somebody does get hurt, they do have to have those extras. I guess, I don't know if you go by Mike's suggestion and do a week by week thing and then plan that way. I'm not really sure how, but I just want to make sure that we're not, our teachers have gone above and beyond to keep these schools open. They're exhausted, they're tired, and we have to make sure that we're all doing the same things to make sure that we can keep our schools open and stay on the same page.
Okay.
I agree with you, Tony. I'm just trying to figure out how to shape it for is it a set number, a bus and a van per event, or is it up to 2 buses?
Well, and it's hard because
with
every
the people that are really playing. Pardon me?
They've all got different numbers, no matter
I know
whatever sport it is, activity it is. So it's hard to cap that when you don't have actual numbers.
Correct. Okay. So currently the motion on the floor is to limit the player, or limit participation to, or limit travel to people who are going to participate with a limit of a bus and a van. That's the motion right now. I know we talked about some stuff, Mike made some caveats, but we didn't amend the motion or anything like that. So that's it as it stands. If anybody would like to amend it or have further conversation, now would be the time. Okay, I hear nobody jumping. What?
Sorry, can I just ask a question?
Oh, absolutely.
Is this as far as going forward every year after that this would only be set, or is it just
that's
during
yeah, I was just assuming this year. Or until we re-meet. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we gotta adapt.
Locking us in past this, this time.
Okay.
Bus limits change, things can change,
Yeah, the governor's recommendations on what we can follow and stuff, sure, so, okay.
Are we going to allow maybe cheerleaders to travel with their families to an event or not?
Well, that's not on the,
That's not on
the motion right now.
But I asked for clarification because that's my concern is, it's kind of like putting something in policy, and that's why I asked, could extras, if parents were going, if different ones were going, just say we got the cheerleaders on the bus. I'm using.
So you're saying this is already part of Mike's amendment?
I asked for an interpretation because I want, to be able to follow your will, so to speak. So that's why I'd asked, could extra, and again, just saying.
Okay.
The
So
answer
is that correct then? I'm okay with that. If that's your intent of the motion, I guess it would be. Why don't you give us your final?
I'd like to see the numbers, real numbers that are planned. And I'd also like to see cheerleaders go. So, however you want to word it, bus and van, or bus allowing the cheerleaders to go. It's their parents to get them there if the numbers aren't good for the bus, the van.
Okay.
I'd like to see the cheerleaders.
Okay. Michelle, you second that? With the new interpretation, are you okay with the second?
So I couldn't quite hear Mike, but what my understanding is
yeah.
that we're saying it was a bus and a van, critical players. I would like a little bit of clarification on still the cheerleader part, because we're still kind of waffling on that part of it. It
Mike
sounds
clarified
to me,
on it, so
Michelle, I clarified that we would figure out a way, you know, to allow the cheerleaders to go, even after picking the critical number and providing a bus and a van. I want to see the cheerleaders go, and if that means parents taking them, whatever we can do. That's how I'd like to do it.
okay, so the bus and the van would be players and possibly cheerleaders, but the only additional people that would be supported by parental travel would be cheerleaders.
Yeah, I think that'd be good, just so we can get the cheerleaders to go.
I just want it to be clear going forward.
Yeah.
And so I just I don't want to put words in your mouth at all. So cheerleaders, one way to think about that is cheerleaders are playing when they're there, and that is maybe the thought process behind also allowing them, because they are playing.
Yep.
Okay.
But again, as part of that clarification, when I asked it, I used, pick a player. I'm going to take Mr. Koenig. If he travels to watch, if his son happened to ride with him, and I'm not volunteering, I'm just using an example, that opens another spot on the bus if needed. So it's not necessarily that the cheerleader's the only one that if there isn't room that have to. I'm just saying if we can get it set up, that opens other spots up that could allow, and that was why I was asking, because it's going to come up.
Yep.
Second this is done, Mr. Mason's going to be dealing
I'm with you. You want something
spots.
clear and concise.
Well, correct, and that's why I'm asking if that's okay. That's the way it is. If the board is saying 31, anyone else that gets down there, they're not playing. If that's the intent, we need to know that.
So can I just talk about that for 1 second? We have been schooling from home as of right now. That might change, but right now we're schooling from home. And we have been, for cross-country meets, been driving my daughter down there and my other daughter, who is a manager, down there. They're way below their numbers. It's another outside sport and stuff like that. So what I would like clarification on then is the football players, if they had a note, could they do this already? And I'm not trying to find a loophole. I'm just trying to get everything out and open and clear here.
That is what I've asked from the attorney, is what is the recommendation that we have in place to, I'm going to say, keep the district, because your motion, if it passes, we're going to provide transportation. People could do that. But if someone so chooses to ride with a parent, what should we have in place? And, so that there isn't a liability to the district. Typically, we've asked for something in writing.
Yeah, and that's what we
I'm
provided
just
every
sure
time.
That
yeah.
covers our rear end, that if something happens, we offered it, we had provided transportation, you chose to take your son, daughter, that takes us on. I want to make sure we have.
But I also took my own too, and that's a concern in itself, is when you're transporting other people's kids. But to do the opposite of only allowing people to transport their kids and not other people, you run the risk of discriminating against like a working, single person or something like that.
No, because we're going to provide, according to Mike, we're providing a bus
Correct,
and a van,
yep, okay.
and we're providing transportation, and the coaching staff will figure out who goes. If a parent takes a kid or their kid, or several do that, that opens more seats.
So if anything,
That's
it's
their
more
choice.
fair. Sure, okay.
And if they know that ahead of time, that's the more kids that technically could go, is what I'm asking for the clarification.
If the only reason we're not sending more than a bus and a van is fiscally, then that makes sense. Like if we could not afford to send more than a bus and a van, per sport and everybody else had to find their own way there. That makes sense. I feel like it's a messy, somewhat slippery slope when we say anybody else who can get there. So pretty soon you're going to have 50 people on the sidelines because 15 will say, my parents are going anyways, I'll ride with them so everybody can go.
Mm-hmm.
If that's okay with us, then that's just probably what's going to happen. I feel like it's hard for us to say this one limit is going to work for all of the sports. But I don't know, I feel like what we're trying to say is we want to limit the risk. We want the kids to go that are going to, participate. And I know participation probably has its own interpretation, right? Participating on the sidelines or participating as a manager, there's all these different levels. But I feel like that's why I think we put our trust in Mr. Mason and Mr. Grovers to make that decision per team with the coaches, and hopefully the coaches are hearing us and why this matters for us to try to be safe for our community. But I just feel like it's hard to set one limit, and now we have 15 cars of kids going, not just kids, but maybe with their parents, and now everybody's on the sideline again that we're concerned about. And I'm sure the boosters are like, we could have just sent another bus and it would have been safer. The same number of kids are on the sideline. So I'm not trying to make this go on any longer than it has to, but I'm sure it's going to I feel like we could be creating a bigger nest for Mr. Mason and legal issues and Mr. Grover,
Yeah, I agree with you, Jen. That will, everything you just said is what I was thinking. So I'm not going to reiterate it. Other than we do have the option, board option. We're going to vote on Mike's thing. There's options for amendments. There's options to vote it down. So I guess whatever somebody wants to do, that's fine. But if there's no other discussion, we could call Mike's to a vote unless somebody wanted to do something, right? And I get also, by the way, Mike, about the playing. The argument, what Jen would be saying is you're limited to people who are playing. So I understand where you're coming from too. But anyways, is there any other board member that would like to add something to this discussion currently? Okay, so hearing none, we're gonna call it to a vote. We'll do a roll call, and I would like the final clarification, just so we all know what we're voting on. I know what we're voting on, but just for the sake of, we're not all gonna say, oh, I thought it was something else later. So we have bus and a van limit to max, to kids who are participating in the sport, and then kids who are participating that can't fit on the bus, and I could be wording this wrong, this is the part I'm concerned about. The kids who are participating who can't fit on the bus, for example, cheerleaders, can get transported on their own. By their parents or a parent or an adult, obviously. It has to be an adult. Yeah.
They can't drive themselves.
Okay, all right. Thanks for that. Okay. Does that sound right? Yeah. Does that sound right, Kevin?
I think so. I still,
Okay.
I'm going, and again, I'm just, because I want Mr. Mason, myself, to follow exactly what you want.
Correct.
Going back to my example, if my son was playing football and just say he was starting whatever, if he rode with me, because he's part of the starting
So this,
team.
I get what you're saying. So I think where it would come would be so then the people, with this scenario, you're saying that the problem lies in when it gets a little murky is when there are, for example, if they decided to take the football players that aren't playing because they fit into the numbers on the bus, and then they took the van instead. And that's the concern, is that they could be putting the football cheerleaders on there and not playing people. Not playing people, but not bringing people that weren't going to play.
Well, I just, and again, I understand Jen's piece of increased risk, and I guess I don't think, I'm just going to throw it out there, Mr. Eistad could probably speak better to this. I watched part of the Moose Lake game on TV. They scanned at one point, and I also asked how many, roughly how many people traveled. It was a good chunk of the parents went no matter what. You know what I'm getting at is parents, especially varsity, and I shouldn't say that, that might be stereotypical, but I think especially as they get later, your kid's a senior, most of those parents go to every out-of-town game. Or if they can't, some work. I don't know if having their kid ride with them increases any, amount that is going to travel to the games. I'm just looking at if the goal is to get as many kids to an event, using people that are going, not requiring people to go, solves a chunk of the problem. If they're willing. Okay. If the sole goal is limit the number that are going out of town, and maybe that includes cheerleaders, maybe it doesn't. That's what I guess I'm asking, because like I say, I'm sure I could list 6, 7 that I know for sure went to the out of town. I know some hockey parents that don't miss a game. Not saying their kid wants to ride with them, but when they needed, they'd probably, as being part of a team, do that to open a spot up so that everyone got to go.
So how does that? So that's up to Mike to clarify then, because it's his motion. So I'll leave it to you on that, Mike. On what do you think about?
I'm getting at? I mean,
I get what you're saying too. I just
sometimes I wish I would have said 2 buses. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, you can amend.
That would cover it.
You can amend what you said. So you're welcome.
I think we have to keep in mind the fiscal part of it, though, Mike.
I understand that, but
And the bus drivers that are at risk then, that drive our kids, the bus drivers that we put on those buses that we're already limited on, and those bus drivers have to be safe enough to drive our kids to school in the morning,
Right.
Figure out a way to write them all the players that are playing, not just going riding on a bus for a trip that don't play. Trying to make room for the cheerleaders. That's what I'm trying to do, and I'm not wording it right, probably. Maybe not, I don't know, but that's what I would like to see. It doesn't need to be 8, 9 kids traveling on a bus and don't play. We didn't do it that way back in the day, and I know people maybe don't want to hear about back in the day. That's the kind of sports I came to. You earned that rate to travel on the bus. It didn't take just anybody. And so that's what I'd like to see, the right amount of kids that have earned the right to go play and are gonna play. And then somehow get it so that the cheerleaders can go through. Okay. That's all I'm trying to do.
So I guess I get what you're trying to say. So then what I would say for clarification then is that would be prevent that what Kevin was talking about is if you said you limited it to people who are playing, which you did, I believe, correct? So then it would be, so with that in mind, for example, a 9th grader who isn't playing then wouldn't go. And a football player, not a football player, a cheerleader would take her place and, his place, is what you're getting at.
Yep, that's what I'm trying to do.
Okay. So it would be limited from here on out to people who are participating in the sport.
And I think the head coach and assistants should be able to come up with the ones that aren't, there's going to be 9th graders that aren't playing.
Mm-hmm.
That's so rare in sports, a 9th grader playing varsity. There's only
Probably less rare with this shrinking school, but I get what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Well, and there could be really great 9th graders, but a senior that's not playing. And so then it's unfortunate, right? Because then the senior's not going to be able to go. Or they're going to put everybody 2 feet into the, play one play so that everybody's included because they're all going to play. I'm not trying to make it, I just feel like our if we want everybody who's going to play and the coaches determine that everybody is going to play,
right,
then and we're going to let everybody drive anybody else who wants to get there, then we could have just gone with, at Moose Lake, you have 2 buses, the booster pays for 1 bus, and everybody went.
Yeah.
And if that's right where we started, that's right where we were. And if that's what we're saying, that we'll provide up to a van and a bus, and the team, whether that includes the cheerleaders or not, depending on how they see them, like that whole group. And if that's all together, and a booster, we're going to allow parents to drive people down. Why wouldn't we allow a booster club to send that second bus?
Yeah.
And then everybody's going anyways, which.
Okay, so then the problem with that is how you deem who plays, right?
It's completely subjective.
Yes. So, any input on that from anybody? Like, I get like, so that's what I was thinking, is at what point does everybody say, oh, they're all playing? There's still some, we still do have some authority. Bill has, and Kevin has some authority to decide that, I suppose.
I guess personally, I don't want to get into picking who plays or not. That's the coach's job.
No, not who plays. I mean, if they gave you a list of everybody on their team, you'd be like, okay, come on, I guess. But then that's up to you again.
But there's the argument, and someone spoke to me, and again, I'm not going to use names. I mean, there are games that certain kids would get into.
That's true.
There are games that go a different direction, and certain kids wouldn't get in. And I'm not talking just walking out at the last 20 seconds to kneel down. I'm just saying, depending on how a game goes, that's a tough choice. I mean, the more this, I'm just going to say, goes around and around in a circle. I mean, I go back to kind of what Mr. Mason had thrown out as three options. Either, cheerleaders are home only for this year, and that alleviates for, I think, every activity, a bus and a van works. Second option being kind of what you're talking about here is you got a bus and a van. That includes cheerleaders. You take the players that are going to play. And the third option is if kids can ride with parents or boosters do a bus or whatever, we're providing a bus and a van and doing option 2, so to speak. But if someone provides something and that means the whole team can go, meaning everyone, so be it. I don't know how we're going to get into splitting straws. Like I say, it's a tough situation, but we're going around and around.
Excuse me, Kevin, can this thing, I know you want to clarify, this thing be what I said, but also have the option if the booster club wants to pay for the second bus along with it, with what I said, so that would take care of everything if they're willing to do that, right?
Well, I think you have to either open it up to, you'll allow alternate transportation, meaning you really can't, I don't think you can really limit a parent from taking a kid. I just want to make sure our rear is covered, if something happens.
Well, you can limit them if they're playing.
Correct, if they're going to play. And again, I think that's an option. If Boosters wants to supply something, again, we don't, we have the right to say our kids can go on there or not, and typically we would say yes if that was the case. It's a matter if you want to limit it to the minimum amount, or if you want to, as long as the coaches, some coach, and again, I'm just throwing it out there. We haven't talked to basketball, hockey, some of these others. Maybe they have a little different stance. They don't want to possibly wipe a team out by taking extra players. I don't know that. Or maybe there aren't technically extras that don't see some ice time. Some of these other, basketball, same thing. It's, it's a little different. Maybe they don't want to, take a few of the extras that aren't going to see playing time. Don't know, but it just has to be cut and dried, so to speak, of what we're going to allow. Otherwise, we're going to run into a problem.
Okay. Yes, Jen.
So to clarify, we are saying the school will provide a bus and a van per event. And if a booster club or parents want to transport other team members, including cheerleaders, would be part of that team, then that is okay. We're just limiting our fiscal investment is really what it is.
Okay.
That's what you're saying.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so that's a good clarification then. Michelle, that was you were the initial second. You still on board? Because it's kind of evolved a little bit, I think it's safe to say.
Yes,
You're on board with your second. Okay.
I am.
Okay, at least for the second. You can vote how you want. I'm just saying for the motion. Okay. Well then let's vote on that. We'll have a roll call. Mike Holden,
Yes.
Michelle Hebner,
Yes.
Tony Corpy,
No.
Jennifer Windows,
No.
Ted Saxton, no. The motion fails. I will entertain a second motion at this time if anybody has one to bring forward. I'll make a motion because I feel like I'm doing it for the sake of moving this along, to limit it to a bus and a half for participating athletes, and I guess that's it. I would like to any transportation that's provided would be, I think that if you have, for example, the basketball team that has to have 20 people, then the transportation for them needs to be provided for that 20 people. What does the football team have to have? A bus and a half, I guess, is my motion.
Are you talking a bus and a van?
A bus and a van, yes, sorry. When I say half, that's what I meant. I know, bus and a van. Because my concern, like I said initially, is about school being open, and we are so close. So that's my motion, limiting sports to bus and a half, and then to the active players.
What happens, and I'm just throwing it out there,
Correct.
What happens if all or only part of the cheerleaders can get on? They're part of the team and you figure out if you need them or,
Correct.
For whatever other
athletes. That is what I'm saying for my motion.
But I'm just asking, that's what you're saying, bus and a van, and then if that includes, if not?
Correct.
No alternative transportation.
So here's the thing. Legally, what we were just talking about was active players can be transported by their parents to play, correct? So it would be inactive players were not allowed on, not inactive, players that aren't going to see playing time are not going to, and I get the disparity of what if there's a game where it's 70-5, either way, right? Then they start, or even not even 70-5, that's just an extreme, but they start playing different players than they would, once the game, or whatever. So I'm just saying the active players need to fit on a bus and a van. And it sounds like that's possible based on Bill's information that he provided us, if they limited to players who generally wouldn't see playing time. That's my motion.
I actually think you're going to I think we're going to run into an issue. Well, and I'm just throwing it out. I just want to speak,
Yep, go ahead.
Is if you take football, like we talked about, because that's the one front and center at this point, you have 31 seats on a bus and a van. Okay.
Correct.
If you include, I'm going to say 10 for the cheerleaders, that's 9 cheerleaders and an advisor, that's 10. That takes that down to 21. The coaching staff, is it 4 or 5, Mr. Eistad? It is 5. I mean, I suppose you can argue, do they need all 5 coaches? I don't want to go into that. You see what I'm saying? When you start working the math,
No, I'm with you, but here's the thing. At some point, you wanted a decisive answer, and that's what you got.
Yep.
So that's the motion that I'm making. It needs to be limited to active players. I think Bill being the athletic director, he should be on top of who's an active player within reason. I mean, we opened this meeting up with me saying that I support your guys' judgment on this type of stuff. At some point, either we make an exact number and we stick with it, or we put a little faith in our administration and he can look over the roster with the coaches, and the coaches can make those tough decisions based on it. I don't know how traveling for the coaches goes. Maybe Seth can elaborate on that. But I would think that you don't need every coach traveling with the team. I don't know about that, though. Like, I'm not sure. I'm sure you got to have some coaches travel with the team because of, supervision and stuff. I don't know how many I don't know if all 5 need to ride on the bus, too. So maybe if you have 2 vehicles, there's 3 extra spots.
I understand.
Some coaches go in a van.
Okay. Yeah, I mean,
they get 2 or 3 on the bus, and you get a couple more in a van.
Okay. So
if we're not taking a second bus, so I mean.
Yeah. So we got it, because if this isn't a decision, somebody besides me is gonna come up with something else then. So because we got to have something. We've been here a while.
Okay, I need you to reiterate what
Okay.
it is. Okay.
Sports will be limited to a bus and a van, and to participating players. I do believe cheerleaders are participating players as well. In fact, they're more participating than a lot of the football players, in my opinion, right? Because they're on the field all the time, if I remember from football games. So to me, they're more participating than a lot of the other players. That's my opinion, though.
So just to limit the exposure, I will second that motion.
Okay.
Okay, I just need clarification again. So the school is going to provide up to a van and a bus for up to, people that would get into those spots would be active players and necessary people to participate, coaches, managers, cheerleaders, whoever else. And if there's additional active players, they will need to find and fund their own transportation. Is that, you know what I mean? Whether it's boosters or parents or whoever, right? But we're talking about there's somebody who has to make the decision of what active members mean.
So in my mind, active players are, if the goal is to limit risk and exposure, active players are limited to those that need to play so we can limit risk and exposure, I guess, I don't think bringing 3 buses full of kids, if we had them, it just doesn't make sense if the main goal is to keep the school doors open. That's my opinion about it.
Jen, did you want alternative transportation then?
Well, I'm not sure if that,
You're trying to see what I'm saying. So
right.
I don't,
you said something about if there's additional active players that could get there. I didn't know what you,
so this is what I meant, is to prevent what Kevin was concerned about on, this is what I get what you're asking. What I meant was that they can't do what Kevin was basically saying and take kids, transport them however they want, for the sake of opening up spots for other kids that weren't going to play. That's what I mean. So what counts as an active player? I think that we really we can dial that in for each sport, and that'd be the only fair way to do it, I guess. Or we can say that we have an athletic director that should know how many players we need to have an active football game. I'm not even 100% sure how many people are out on the field all the time. So it's not my decision, on how many people need to play. I have no clue about football. I used to watch it regularly, and that was a while ago, and I've forgotten everything about it. So to me, that's what we pay somebody over. Well, I don't want to go there, but we pay somebody a lot of money to make those tough decisions. That's my opinion.
So an active player, including cheerleaders, they can't get on the bus, they would be available to use alternative transportation.
Correct.
Okay, that's the clarification I'm wondering about. So if it's 40 and we only have space for 34 or 35, they've sorted out everything.
If indeed that many are truly playing.
Or need to be there for coaches or whoever else. Yeah. Okay. Then you're saying the rest of that number would have to be, get there, okay.
Yeah.
So we're
But I
opening
still-
up again for everybody to go, correct? Is that what you
Nope.
just made?
Nope, absolutely not. Because there will be somebody deciding that whose role in the school is to decide that type of stuff. And I would trust that Bill would use his best judgment in limiting our exposure based on necessary players. I think if they have 3 strings, Bill needs to take a hard look at that and be like, why do we have 3 strings? Or whatever makes sense for that sport. Again,
Well,
Bill's been involved in literally every sport that there is. He knows how many people need to be for each sport.
I'd clarify to the coach, here's your number. I'm not gonna tell him, you keep Johnny home and take.
No, that's not your job. Yeah, that, I mean the number.
You know,
Yeah.
but, you know.
No, you don't want to go down that. That's
No.
that's a real can of worms right there.
But if you're an active participant and there's not enough room in the van or the bus that we're providing, they can use alternative transportation to get down there.
Correct. That's what I'm saying right now.
That clarifies, thank you.
Okay. We have a motion by myself and a second by Tony. Would there be any further discussion before we take a vote? Okay. Hearing none, we'll do a roll call. Mike Holden?
Yes.
Michelle Hebner?
Yes.
Tony Corpy?
No.
Jennifer Windows?
Yes.
Ted Saxton, yes. It carries 4-1. I really do appreciate everybody's discussion and time that they put into this. I know it's very important and it's important to a lot of people, and I think it deserved the time that we gave to it, so I want you guys to know that I appreciate the input that went into this discussion. All right. I got to get my agenda back up because that was a while ago. My computer died on me.
I closed it.
Oh, I got it up on my phone here, so don't worry about that. Okay. 1 second here, please. Okay. Administrative reports. Melissa Tate, elementary principal. Are you with us, Missy?
I am still with you.
Okay. Thanks. You're in the dark
Okay.
somewhere.
Yes, I'm in my car. I had kids to run to activities tonight.
Okay.
So, we are at 455 students. We're up 4 students from last month.
Oh, you froze up, Missy.
I don't remember what I this week, but I first that the kids they're really doing a great job with wearing their masks. What's that?
Well, you keep on breaking up right
Can you
now.
hear
might
me?
we can hear you right now, but you keep on going in and out here. Oh, you froze again, I think. Missy, we'll come back to you. And
Going well.
Missy, can we come back to you in
things are
a
coming
few
along.
minutes? Yeah, we're gonna have to. Okay. Tim, I want you to start, but I also know that she's going to come back on here in a second. So,
I'll just tell her too late.
okay. Hey, Missy, we're going to have Tim give his report now because you go in and out a lot.
Okay.
Okay, sorry about that. I mean, it's not my fault, but. Okay, Tim Everson, secondary principal.
Okay, our enrollment is at 555. We are actually up 2 from last month. We have our homecoming week, the week of October 26th to the 30th, with the homecoming football game scheduled for Friday the 30th. Mr. Vang and student council are making plans for some safe student activities. Unfortunately, we will not have a pep fest or a parade this year. End of quarter 1 is Friday, November 6th. We have parent-teacher conferences this Tuesday and Thursday night from 5 to 8, and the teachers are offering virtual conferences using Zoom sessions with links in their Google Google Classrooms. And we have sent out 2 Skylert messages to parents reminding them of the conferences and how to get on. And the teachers have been working with kids to make sure they have links shared in their Google Classroom. That's all I have.
Okay. Thank you. Hey, Missy, if you can still hear us, try giving your report without turning on your camera. Just your mic.
Okay, can you hear me better?
Yeah, we'll see if this works, and if not, we'll have to catch up with you later.
I just was going to say we are having conferences October 27th and 29th. We also are offering both virtual and in-person conferences. Can you still hear me?
Yep. Everything's going fine so far.
Okay.
Oh, that was bad luck.
I think I talked about this last week, but the kids are really so happy to be back at school. Like, our behavior is really good. The kids are just genuinely happy to be back. So that's really nice to see. We hope we can keep our doors open. And I think things are starting to come along in the classrooms. I think the teachers still struggle, feeling torn between giving their distance learners enough attention while they're also teaching in person. That's hard to feel like you're doing 2 jobs at once. So I think they're still finding their voice, if you will, with that. But things are definitely coming along, and I just still want to thank everybody at our school for all the pitching in and different jobs they're doing. Everybody's wearing many different hats and making it work. We do still struggle with sub shortages, and that's probably our. Was I frozen again?
Yeah, you froze up again. We're gonna move on, Missy, but we got a good portion of it. Sorry about that. All right.
That's all right. Technology.
Yep. Dan McGonigal, Community Ed Director. He's not in the meeting.
He just sent me a few things. I'll make it quick. He said he'd spoke with Ted regarding esports. Esports has about a half dozen individuals interested. A coach/mentor has been identified. Plan to join the MN Minnesota VL as our sponsor and agency in the fall/winter. We'll compete in scrimmage capacity with the thought of competing via sanctioned competitions in the spring. We need to update our graphics cards in order for the specs to work for our team. So discussions are continuing regarding possible options. We continue to offer sign up to interested parties and are letting them know as part of the weekly announcements. Spelling Bee, we are in place to host a Spelling Bee in 2021 and have teachers/staff interested. Excited about the idea. We might possibly compete in additional Spelling Bee style competitions against Cooch County schools as well. More to come. Special Olympics, we're on pace to offer Special Olympics during the 21-22 school year. ECFE, our numbers are where we plan for them at only 5 families per session, morning and night, with a small wait list. Early childhood screening is set for October 26th and 27th. We continue to try to schedule families and are about 50% full, with more work being done this week. Swimming pool, the pool continues to operate open swim morning times only. We're waiting until the custodian workload is such that we can offer more times for interested swimmers. I'd like to circle back to the possibility for the winter months, but we'll continue to have conversations with Tom. That's all he has.
Okay. Thank you, Dan. In absentia. Next up is, I lost it again, darn it. That would be Kevin Grover, Superintendent.
Okay, thank you. A couple things. I don't have a ton here. I sent an email to you. Everyone should have gotten earlier today. Not endorsing or not. It's another school board member that would like to write a letter to Governor Walz. I just said personally, I didn't like. Again, I'm not saying I disagree with everything. I don't want to sign my name to it because I would rather have options. You know. But again, it's up to it. It was asked to be sent on to all board members. So that's what I did. You have your own choice if you think it's, the right thing to do or not. So I just wanted you aware of that. I also wanted to let you know in November, year prior to, I I shouldn't say in November, by November 1st in the year that my contract goes up, I need to email the board or put it in writing. I think the contract says if I'm interested in seeing if you will offer another contract. So just so you're aware, I will be sending each of you an email in writing of the contract language. It is then the district's responsibility to respond by December 1st. So for the most part, on the November board meeting, doesn't mean we have to have a contract. You need to decide if you're gonna entertain a contract with myself or not. So when you get that email, I don't want anyone, what is this about? That'll be coming. Okay. I'll do it in the next few days. I just wanted to make you aware, just in case you see it, and Ted is aware, MSBA had an option, and hopefully you all saw it, and there's options always to put in resolutions to MSBA to consider. I had put something in, they came back saying it needs to come from a board member, not technically, I'm going to say an ex officio board member myself. So I talked to Ted, and what it deals with is, I'm just going to read it to you. Be it resolved that MSBA urges the legislature to repeal the requirement of Minnesota Statute 124D.095, Section 5 of the Online Learning Option Act, which would eliminate the provision allowing online learning students to participate in extracurricular activities with the enrolling district. What it's going for, and I just want everyone on board of, you don't have to agree or disagree, just be aware that I put this out there, that right now, if a student enrolls in an online provider that is a public school, they can continue to participate with our district for years. It could be 4 years, 5 years, whatever they play varsity sports. But if you transfer, just say to Little Fork or a neighboring district, you become ineligible after 1 year. You know, you could stay playing here. And so to me, it's an inequity that if someone wants to go, there's charter schools different, but with an online provider and take their money with them, why can they continue to play activities here indefinitely? So I just want you aware, I put it out, whether it goes anywhere or not, no idea, okay? The last thing, and it's, is COVID numbers. Okay. And just want, I don't know if everyone is aware or not, the numbers are rising. Technically, when we hit the recommendation of 30, that's where the table is, the high school would be looking at going distance learning. Now, that being said, there are many districts that have worked with the Department of Health and local county people to get a little more input on where those numbers are. For instance, and I'm just giving an example, if we had 15 in a long-term care facility right now, you know, cases, or 20 or some larger number, they've had discussion going, this isn't really a reflection of what is technically, it is part of our community, don't get me wrong, but they're just saying that maybe isn't a reason at 30 then to go out. And so we need a little discussion as a board of, you know, right now, I'll just be honest, I don't think have any students, enrolled students that have COVID. We have a couple staff members that are close to being done and coming back. If that number gets to 31, 32, you know, 33, you know, how comfortable, you know, we're not going to flip a switch. I think right now we leave it. We're going to meet a week from now in a working session. Mm-hmm. I think we look at where the numbers are. Let's give it another week, you know, and
they're not over the limitations yet, correct?
No, and it depends. Like I say, each site is a little slightly different, but and you can dial in by zip code. Not saying that's perfectly accurate or not. You can look at county numbers, but we're going that way now. 2-3 days, it could drop down a little bit again. But at some point, we need to start going. What is your, you know, comfort level, if you will? Not only for the students, but for our staff and staff safety. For the elementary, they can stay in hybrid till 50. It's the high school that we run into the issue technically at 30. Isn't it 30 or is it 40? At 30, to where you got to start looking and trying to find some more information and see where we're at. Department of Health, county as well as state, you know, are willing to have conversation, give their recommendations. They don't, you know, make the decision, but I'm just throwing it out there that at some point you got to go, you know, when should I call you back in again? I mean, if we all of a sudden jump to 55 tomorrow, I can tell you I'm going to pull the pin fairly quickly. Not saying we don't give parents a little, a day or two notice, but on the other hand, it'd be nice to plan ahead and say, hey, even though some maybe we don't have a lot in the building, when we hit this threshold, we want to take a break for 2 weeks or a month or till the numbers get back down. And I'm just looking for some guidance because we're just slowly, going that direction. And again, it doesn't mean the second you hit 30, or it can mean the second you hit 30. Depends on what your guidance is telling you.
When you're talking 30, are you talking community?
What happens, there's a ratio. The way the governor and his group, Department of Health, came out is they take the number in the community and divide by the number of 10,000 chunks. So our divisor is 1.22 because we have 12,200. And so we take the cases, and I think, is it 35 in the community right now? I don't know, 34 divided by 1.22, and that gives you a number. And I think we're at 27 or something like that right now. And that's by count. If you dialed in just in our district, the number goes up a little bit. And again, that one's a harder one to kind of know what's coming and going. We know Mr. Everson has a very good chart going and knows exactly what's coming off tomorrow, or and so can kind of predict. You can't predict what's coming today,
but you can predict what's rolling out.
But if it's a zero, we know it's doing this, or if we got a pretty good handle on it. So I don't, like I say, I think we need to be thinking about it. We're going to be meeting over the next 2 weeks at any time, even though a work session, we could put a specific agenda item on to, deal with that one item and then have the working session if we feel. And again, you've given me the right to kind of, make a decision. And I guess that's why, again, I wouldn't do it without, getting some input. And that's kind of what
I don't think you'd shut down the school unless it was something
well, you know what I'm saying, and that's why I guess I'm open. Yeah. I don't want to, I'll sit here as long as we need to, but I'd like to hear from people on, some may say if you hit 30, I think we should give 3 days notice and shut her down. If others might say, the Department of Health, meaning state as well as county group, thinks we should keep going, and most of the cases are elderly or something different that run it a little bit. Again, I don't want to risk our staff any more than anyone else or our students. But on the other hand, there have been quite a few districts that have went above the 30. I'm just being honest, and let it go a little longer. I just don't know where your comfort level is, because I don't want someone coming back and going, at 30 we were going to shut down. Well, let's have a little bit of conversation.
Is the 27, is that like a running average you're keeping, or is that because the state puts out a thing every
14-day average, or 14-day number?
This is a live one, right? You're going day by day, right? Okay. Okay, but it's the live number. When I think of how comfortable I am with how far it goes, I mean, I totally agree. There's a lot of nuance to the age of the people and what part of the county they're in, and what the mental health of the students that are coming here and what it means to families, all those things. So I think, I know you guys are making those decisions just by day, I'm sure, on how things are going, about how to evaluate things. So how, though, I'd like to hear, how is the custodial staff holding up with what they need to do? How are the kids with compliance with masks? How is it going on the buses? What is are we equipped? Is our staffing okay to keep going as numbers creep up and a few people are out here and maybe they're sick for other things? And you know what I mean? How are we holding up, and what's going right and what's tough right now? And that might help to say, because some of that is a factor in whether we can keep going, right?
Yeah, and again, I don't want to speak, and I'm not going to speak for every teacher, every custodian, every bus driver, or anything else. There's no doubt. I think everyone is more stressed, more tired than, I'm just going to say, they would, principal, whoever, they normally would be right now. It is tough juggling distance learners, in class, combinations, managing online, paperwork and different stuff. It's, well, and I don't even know who the author was. I saw something this weekend that someone's March tired in October. Just saying, usually by the end of the school year, or towards the end, you're starting to drag. And I think that's realistic. I mean, I think if you'd asked administration, if you'd asked custodians, they're all there right now. That said, I can't say, going distance learning for everyone is going to solve that issue. It may be easier for some. It may be harder for others. It puts different stresses on families. I just want to be honest that I can't answer. I mean, it is a lot. It's different than having everyone in your class a normal time.
No, I totally get that. And all the little things are adding up, and that weighs it too. I just mean, how are we doing?
Well,
is it a safe environment for people to come? Do we have enough, you know what I mean? Like, are we cleaning things? Are kids complying? Are families complying? You know what I mean? Like, how is it going is what I'm wondering.
And again, I'd open it to Tim and Missy as well. I think it's going well on that extent, but keep in mind, there are days that we've had to cover, so to speak. That's the challenge is, again, as I have talked about before, myself as an example, when Ava had to be out, it wiped 2 people out. Not that we're typically in the classroom every day, but that's the scenario that, if a kid goes out and we have 1 or 2 teachers, it takes them and they might be out numerous days. Not, hey, let's give them a day and maybe they'll stay with grandma or grandpa for 2 days. You're out until most likely a COVID test, even though you might be out for the flu or strep or something. Sure. And the same with custodians and across the board, So, I mean, we're covering, we're getting by. I mean, it's a challenge, and I think it's going to be a challenge across the board. Even if we go to distance learning, you have that problem. It's a little different that the kid's truly sick at home. Can I, as a teacher, cover, I'm going to need a sub, and how do you get a sub for that? It's different. But there's challenges everywhere.
Well, and by your, with the posting on the website today, it's a plea to the community to do their best outside of school to help us. Do you feel like, again, are kids participating pretty well in the precautions, do you feel like, in the hallways when they're needing to? Do you feel like sports are doing a pretty good job? Do you feel like, I know you can't control everybody everywhere, but in our environment, if we're not able to keep it safe, then I think that too would be a reason to say, if we can't keep doing it well, we need lots of reminders, whatever it is that we need to do. Do we need to tell kids, gosh, I see you every day without a mask, every time you're in the hallway, do we need to transition you to distance learning? You know what I mean? Like, is there ways that we need to kind of say, we need everybody on board to be in the building? I don't know. But how do you think it's going?
Should probably turn this on. I think it's going fairly well in the building.
Great.
We do have students who are pulling masks down below their noses and are being reminded, and I've had teachers talk to me, numerous times, different teachers, and we're working with some students, but for the most part, I think kids are being really pretty good about wearing their masks.
Okay.
People are tired. It is hard managing. I had teachers tell me about, like, grading, parents and special ed teachers and coaches watch Skyward for grades. Well, in a normal classroom, I would collect the assignments at the end of the hour. I would grade those. I would put them in Skyward, and that would be kind of done until the next day. But what happens is teachers grade things, they put it in the grade book, and then within a half an hour, there's more assignments coming into their Google Classroom. So they're finding it really hard to stay caught up in that grade book in Skyward. So it's just, you only have half the number of kids in your classroom, but you're trying to manage all those kids on Zoom and the assignments, and there's a lot to it. And I've talked to numerous parents whose kids are struggling with the online piece, not being here. We have parents, I have emails of parents who want their kids here every day, and we can't accommodate that to stay at the 50% capacity. And, we realize that this is hard for kids to not be here, to only be here 2 days. It's really hard for everyone. You know, to go full distance is going to be really hard on those kids. The hybrid it's really kind of hard on everybody. It's just so different. And like Kev said, you know, it's kind of like March fatigue in October. And it's like, you know, we're not even to quarter one. And it feels like we've been doing this for years. I mean, kids are happy to be here though. They really are. So, I mean, that's the positive piece of this is that I was out working the front door the other day, and as kids were coming in, we were screening, and I was just asking, you know, how's it going? And kids are happy to be here. And like Missy had said, they are happy to be here, even though it's different and it's, you know, not as comfortable as it would be if you didn't have to wear a mask, but they are happy to be here. So,
good.
Is there an adjustment that's going to happen at the end of the quarter? Do families get an option to say, I'm going to put my kid into hybrid or out, or or has that just been happening?
That has been happening. We've been trying to accommodate any change that a parent wants to make. I had actually 3 kids go full distance learning today. So we've been trying to accommodate people going either way. And, you know, as long as I've had some requests for people to go from Monday, Tuesday to Thursday, Friday, and the classes just have been too big to allow that. We couldn't do that. But as far as coming back and forth, we haven't had to say no to anyone requesting to come back from distance learning.
Okay. So I guess the guidance I would say is unless something jumps up dramatically, a week from now should be okay with a leg to make a decision if we needed to. If there was, you know, if it started creeping up even more. That's how I feel about it. I don't know if everybody else feels the same way. A week isn't too far away. Now, of course, if anything changes rapidly, I think you got to give us a call. You know, maybe we can have an emergency meeting in that case.
And with us meeting for the most part the next 2 weeks, you know, looking at it week by week, even though it's just a working session, again, if I get the pulse that.
Well, if we knew it 3 days beforehand, we're fine. And if not, that can technically be classified under an emergency, I think. So we would, as long as we tried our best to get it out to the public.
Like I say, the main thing is technically the board doesn't have to take action with the resolution. I mean, I have said up front, unless it's an emergency, I want to have some conversation. So we'll have conversation, whether it's individual, whether it's part of the working session. We'll put that on. I'll put COVID update on our work session. So at least we can have some conversation.
Okay.
And like I say, we look at it the next 2 weeks, fingers crossed, the numbers peak and start going down a little bit. Because it is getting close, you know, and we'll get as much info as we can. Like I say, locally, you know, there's certain things they know and certain things they can share or not share. You know, like I say, if I'm going to pick on the jail, for instance, you know, say there was an outbreak in there, they can possibly maybe not tell us how many exact or whatever, but that might be something where local health can say, hey, you know, we got 10 cases that, you know, maybe aren't going to affect you a whole lot. You know, and I don't know until we have those conversations. The same thing if you had, again, at long-term care facility, if there were 10, 15, 20 cases in one of those, somehow the counties are telling the schools and going, hey, the majority of the cases are not in the quote-unquote normal public.
Yeah, and
that makes a difference, too, yeah. You know, in the numbers. Or they can even, hey, you know, we got 14 cases that are way south of you, but it's still in the county. Well, that changes a little bit of true where our number is. So we'll keep the board in loop. That's all I have at this point.
Thank you for
someone has questions.
Oh, anybody with questions for Kevin? Okay, committee reports. Is anybody, we already had the community ed report, but would somebody from the advisory board like to speak?
We've had a couple meetings, just virtual meetings over Zoom.
Okay.
Mostly talking about the same things that Kevin's report from Dan discussed.
Okay. Thank you, Michelle. Recreation Commission. Mike, you're the only one here from it today? Yeah. Oh, that's not true. Tony's on it now. Sorry. But yes, go ahead. Yeah. Go ahead.
Mike, the mic. Otherwise, they can't hear you.
Oh, yeah. It won't be
sorry.
Recorded properly.
We got a meeting on Wednesday. And there isn't a whole lot going on because of the COVID thing, but we'll have some stuff to talk about on Wednesday. So I'm looking forward to that, and I'll have more to bring back at the next meeting. So,
Thank you. You got something? Oh, okay. You're just. Well, I could elaborate on that a little bit more. But rec hockey isn't. It's under the rec umbrella, but it's not a. So it, yeah. It's
I can tell you what it is. They have their own board, okay, and when everything's running smooth, we let them handle their stuff. It's just like Little League, same thing. However, if things get out of control, like let's say they're having locker room troubles or whatever,
which they did before,
which they have at times, well, now they're under the umbrella of the rec commission. So if we don't feel like things are getting straightened out, then we step in and maybe go to their board meeting and say, hey, you know, you need to clean it up. But overall, we let them make their own decisions unless things get carried away. So.
And I think, and I'm not going to speak for the group, but I've just been part of the conversations with Mr. Mason as part of the issue tonight. You know, I think they're going to discuss some of that because there is some things like junior high volleyball. I think Tony can comment. I think it's junior high. They are doing some practicing. I think junior high football, I think they did, maybe still are doing a few weeks of practice or something. I think things are evolving, and I don't want to say right or wrong, but I think the rec commission is going to have some more conversation. And you know, what are you going to do? Because it's, again, just throwing it out there, if rec hockey is running, why can't rec basketball run? You know, even though they're separate, they do fall under the rec commission. So I think some of that conversation is going to come. I'm just throwing it out there.
Okay. All right. Again, the person I always feel the worst for, because it's a 3-hour meeting now, Ella Barr Jeffrey, student representative. Did you hang on this long?
Yeah, she's on.
I did. I'm still here.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Do you have anything you'd like to report?
Yeah, I have a few things. So student council was able to do our back to school bonfire at Voyageurs National Park. So thank you to them for letting us do it out there. We were able to do it very safely. We did our highway cleanup on October 10th. Recently, we helped Falls Hunger Coalition and Friends Against Abuse for their one-day period project. I'm excited to say we also have 2 students through our tutoring system that we're doing now, that we are tutoring. And next week, so the 26th to the 30th, is our homecoming week. And something we have come up with to do, instead of doing dress-up days in school, we're going to do a virtual spirit week. So kids can choose between doing a dress-up day or participating in an activity, and then they can take a picture and post on social media and tag student council or the school or whatever that is. So I think we'll have some extra participation for that as well. And so our details for that are coming out either on Wednesday or Thursday this week. And along with homecoming, so usually for October, for Halloween, we trick or treat for the food shelf. And instead of doing that this year, we're thinking that at the homecoming game, we are going to do a food drive there. So a little safer. And what I'm really excited about is, so last week, student council sponsored the blood drive that happened at Kutaska Gym. And what was super awesome, so it lasted for 3 days. So we had around 110 to about 120 donations, and that's double what we usually have. So that was very exciting for us. And yeah, that's what I have for you.
That's a lot to just kind of shrug and be like, that's all I've got. Good job. No, that's all great work. Thank you very much, you and your students, for that. Or fellow students.
Ella, can I throw one thing in just as a request, and I would be more than happy to help, but sometimes I don't see things. Wednesday or Thursday, whenever the kind of activities for homecoming come out, can the radio station and I'm guessing the Journal both want to be informed. And again, I can give you contacts if you want. I can email you. If I do that, I mean, are you the person that I should email, or is someone else kind of?
Yes. Yeah, that would be awesome.
Okay, I'll make a note, and they just would appreciate knowing as soon as possible. I'm just throwing it out there.
Okay, thank you again, and sorry for waiting on to make you wait till the end. If we can figure something out with that on like meetings like tonight, that'd be okay too. If we could let her maybe go during a little earlier, I think she might appreciate it too. But I do appreciate your commitment, so thank you very much. At this point, I will entertain a motion to adjourn at 7:50.
Second.
Got a motion by Jen, a second by Mike. We will do a roll call vote. Mike Holden?
Yes.
Michelle Hebner?
Yes.
Tony Corpy?
Yes.
Jennifer Wendells?
Yes.
And Ted Saxton, yes. The motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Thanks to everybody who participated.